very short version of it, before I was 7, so super.
I was gonna close this behind you because it's weird.
You don't like the halos coming down?
Earlier, the tin roof was reflecting over here, and I was like, ah. It was so bright.
You're all welcome. So before I entered 7, just that early part of my life, I was kidnapped by my mother. My dad got us back. He divorced my mother. And then I always say the day of, but it was a few days after, that he got the divorce. He dropped us off at an orphanage. And we were in an orphanage for almost 3 years. And then he comes back to get us 3 years later, and then drives us to Mississippi and drops us off at my grandparents in a sharecropper environment. If you don't know what a sharecropper is, so in the South, primarily in the South, in Mississippi, there are super large farms, and people who work those farms who don't actually get paid to work the farm. They get their living paid for. So my granddad and my grandmother lived in this thing called a shotgun house. So imagine a mobile home turned long ways. So you walk into one end of it, and you're in the living room, you walk deeper, you're in the kitchen, you walk deeper, you're in a bedroom or two, and then you walk deeper, and there's a back door. So it's just they call it a shotgun house because you could open the front door, open the back door, shoot a shotgun through the house, and you actually go through the house. That's where the name came from. So there's 13 of us living in this shotgun house on a middle of a farm in Mississippi. We worked the land, never saw money, ever. And I tell people, we were never poor. We were crazy broke. Crazy broke. When my brother was 10, he was walking through our kitchen and literally fell through the kitchen floor. So my entire childhood, my granddad goes out to our barn, rips a sheet of 4x8 plywood off the barn, lays it across the kitchen floor, and that was our kitchen floor for as long as I can remember. And every night after dinner, we would raise up this 4x8 sheet of plywood and feed the chickens underneath the house from underneath this plywood. So we had nothing, but never poor. And there's a real big difference when you talk about your mindset when you are talking about poor versus being broke. And I like to say that being poor is a deficit of your heart and your mind, and being broke is just a deficit of your bank account, a deficit of your wallet.
Mm.
And
Repeat again. Wait again. One more time.
Sorry. Poor is a deficit of the heart and mind. Being broke is a deficit of your bank account or your wallet. So I like to say, don't be poor, just be broke. It's okay to be broke. Because being broke means you have to go fix, something that's wrong with your bank account, something that's wrong with your wallet. Being poor is something that's in your heart and in your mind. It's a lot harder thing to solve. It's a really hard thing to solve. And a lot of people deal with that. They may not have money, but instead of being broke, they're poor. And we use this terminology a lot, right? Oh, they got poverty mindset. Be careful with the word, because you may be projecting onto them that they're poor, right? They're not poor. They may be poor, and they can solve that, right? They need counseling. Usually, they're carrying baggage from something that causes that. So that was like my early childhood, and then as I progressed, I actually went to school to be a surgeon. I wanted to be a surgeon my whole life since I was 3 years old, and I was a junior in undergrad, and my best friend to this day was across the hall from me in our dorm, and I needed a math elective, and he says, hey, you could take a programming class. They actually count that as a math elective because it's called the pure science at the school I went to. So I took a programming course, and it just forever changed my life. I called my grandmother, who I was living with at the time, and I said, Granny, I'm not going to be a doctor anymore. And she was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, I want to work in computers. You're going to play on computers? So she didn't talk to me for about 6 months. But I got into software, and it was a huge blessing to our family, right? Huge blessing to our family financially. So, for me, my authority for money comes from the fact that I know what it's like to literally have, you're feeding chickens through the kitchen floor. When I went to college, my parents' combined income, because you have to fill out the FAFSA here in the States, right? My parents' combined income when I went to college was $14,000 for the year. So there's the poverty line, you know, somewhere here, and we were like, man, those people got jacked because we got, right? They can eat food every day. Right? So I come from that to growing, you know, financially through software, and then Christy, you know, gets into Young Living. That's been a blessing to us. But I've always been this huge student of personal finance. I love finance because I look at money as a tool, and I look at it as something we can model to people. And if you ever talk to me privately, you'll learn I'm really big on modeling. So, you know, modeling is how we as humans learn, right? When you have kids, if you've got like a son and you buy him the plastic hammers and drills, right? Well, he's modeling. He's learning what tools are. If you have a little girl and you buy him the fake kitchen thing with the 10,000 little green beans and apples and bananas all over the house, like you're modeling. You're modeling what homemaking looks like at that young age. And everything we do, like, everything you do in life is modeled. And money is just another thing you can model. And that's, I think, why I like it so much, because it's a way to teach people how to be responsible. It's a muscle that you can actually exercise even when you have none. So, you know, Christy and I, we do these things, and it varies, but some people call it vision boarding. Like, we do this thing called dream casting, and we've done it since even before we were married. But when we were even really young in our marriage, Christy and I would drive around in these super fancy neighborhoods. This was before we had HGTV. We would drive around these super fancy neighborhoods and literally pick out a house, and then we would have like a real conversation about that house. Well, I'm not crazy about the shutters. I would probably change those. And we would just talk about the house. And what you're doing is you're actually exercising this muscle.
Can I add something to the story, because it just came to me? Do you remember? So Jake and I met online when we were 15, and we talked for 4 years before we met in person. And then when we met in person, we got married like 3 months later. So in those 4 years of chatting online and building a relationship, and we really like finally met in person. It was before we met in person, in AutoCAD or something. It was like some program he had, and he started
MS Paint.
MS Paint. He started building us a house before we were even married, I'm pretty sure. And he started asking me questions like, what would you want it to look like? What would you want it, like, as far as the landscape to be? And literally,
you're like, I don't know you. I just met you, weird nerd.
He's building the commitment up, and then like sent it to me, went over it. But that's totally like, we've done this from day one. And I think it was one of our common threads, is just that dream casting. And we both grew up like, my dad's raised 2 girls, my sister and I, on $11,000 a year. It was just like crazy. So we both had that drive and vision, and that's so important to keep that.
And the key is like don't discount the play, right? Like we all as parents say, oh, imaginative play is great for the kids. Well, guess what? You're just an older kid. I mean, imaginative play is good for you. Yeah. But make it intentional, right? So we do this thing called dream casting. We do it now with HGTV. We love to watch HGTV, and there's another channel we watch called AWE, which stands for A Wealth of Entertainment. It's pretty funny because some of the shows on there are like, you know, this couple is buying a $100 million yacht, and we're like, okay, that's next level. Like, we're talking about buying a car. They spend $1 million on a yacht. We can learn from this, right? So we watch those shows, and we literally will chat about, like, again, this $100 million yacht. I'm like, oh, that bedroom is gross. I would put never bedding in there. Like, we play with it. We play games with our kids. So a game that we love to play is called Cash Flow for Kids. It's a really old game by Robert Kiyosaki. They have an adult version called Cash Flow, but the Cash Flow for Kids is actually better. And you end up getting, your game board is this huge P&L, and if you don't, that's called a profit and loss statement. So in business, you have income, you have expenses, you have assets, you have liabilities, and all that boils down to a profit loss. Are you making money or not, right? So the whole game, and we play this with our kids, the whole game, you're going around this board and you draw a card, and it's like, hey, your card is broke down. You can either pay $300 now or put $10 on your monthly liability sheet. So you end up making decisions like, man, do I put cash out for this? Do I add to my liabilities? And what you learn over time is that what you want is more income and assets than liabilities. And when you do that, you have cash flow monthly, which is what actually produces a residual income for you and your family. And when we when we knew we were winning with our kids is Haley, and I don't remember how old Haley is or was. No, how she was, but like Chrissy overhears Haley in her room talking to her doll, whatever, Sally. Well, Sally, you don't have any residual income.
No, yeah, she was like, and they're like, what's wrong with you? She's like, my doll has no passive income. That was great.
So we're very intentional about money in our family. That's why I love talking about it. I love working with people to help them build wealth because there's plenty of money in our world, and I want a lot of it. And I want people who can do good things with that money and be good stewards of it to have a lot of it too.
Yes.
Because there are people out there who don't share your values or your dreams, your aspirations. Well, guess what? They get money too, and they do stuff with that money. So I'd rather people, like Mary says, good people with money can do good things in the world. I'm a big believer in that. So when we look at our businesses, this is, and I got this because, again, I like modeling. And we're going to talk about a couple of different financial topics today, but the first thing we're going to talk about is your asset value of your business. So if this is your business, what happens, and I'm not giving you this money, it's just an exercise. All right.
I'll hold your wallet if needed.
All right, so this is what happens, okay? This is your paycheck, right? This is your paycheck, and if you ask someone in your team, what's your business worth? They'll say, $100. I made $100 this month. But this isn't your business. This is the result of 1 month of your business. So this is your business, right? This is your business. And in your business, I'm going to put this in here because I didn't know what else to try to use. Each month, you do something, you work, and you get to pull out $100. And the next month, you get to pull out $100. And then the next month, you get to pull out $100. So how much is this worth? If this bag gave you $100 every month, what's the bag worth? That's the real question, right? So when we try to determine the asset value of a business, there's a lot of ways to do it. And I actually really like Ryan's approach because he makes the math easy.
Yeah.
So I usually talk about the rule of 8, which I am going to talk about with you guys, but Ryan Hayes, he's they're Crown or whatever. They're Diamond Plus Leaders Young Living. Well, Ryan uses a 6% rule because you can do some really simple math with 6%, okay? When you look at the asset value of a business, if a business produces a certain amount of money, the way you can determine the asset value of this bag is, well, how much money would I have to have working, not in a business, how much money do I have to have working that lets me pull out a $100 bill every month? Because that's what this is worth, right? Because if I had $1 million working in the market, right, 6% would be, what, $60,000? So if I had $1 million working in the market meaning whatever, investment real estate, the actual stock market, whatever, money working for you. If I had $1 million working in the market, it would produce about $60,000 a year in interest. So it's a big bag that I can pull money out of every year, right? So when you look at your business, if you're, say, a gold, the average gold is like $6,000, I think, $6,000 a month, something like that. So a gold really makes like $72,000 a year on average. Okay? That's equivalent to having more than $1 million in the market working for you. So when someone looks at their business as a gold and they don't see this big, valuable thing, your first question should be, well, I mean, do you have $1 million working in the market?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when they say, I'm just a gold, or I'm just a silver.
And if you don't know me, I tell people this all the time.
He gets mad about that.
I get pissed. If you come to me and you're like, hey, my name is Sally, and I'm just a senior star, I always tell people, don't ever say that to me, I will punch you in the throat. 8% of our, think about it, only 8% of our member base makes it to star.
Only 8%.
Only 8% makes it to star.
Yeah.
So even if you just made it to star, you're in the top 8% of all the people that enroll in Young Living, right? So as you grow in the business and you're a senior star, which gets even less, and then an executive gets even less, if you're a gold in Young Living making $5,000-$6,000 or more per month, you make more than people with professional degrees that are out in the world being told what to do every single day.
Yep, massive savings.
And we miss the value of the asset when we look at our check. Christy used to do this. It's so funny to me. When Christy was growing, she grew quickly from gold to crown. Took her like a year a year and a half.
You're asking me numbers.
It was like a year to a year and a half from gold, because that's all I remember. That's all I cared about when I joined with her. So from gold to the crown was like a year and a half. Christy would get a paycheck, and her paycheck grew by like $2,000 a month. And she's like, babe, I got a $2,000 raise. And I'm like, no. When you go talk to a normal person with a job, do they talk about their raise in relation to what it increased on a monthly basis? No, it's an annual basis. So yes, you got a $24,000 raise this month. That's pretty badass. Go do it again. Go do it again. So it's really important. So a good business building tool with people in your team, and Ryan had this, and I've used it, but the way he worded it was beautiful. He said that, and I don't remember exactly, but it effectively said, I want to earn blank, okay? And I can either put blank amount of money to work or reach
Blank.
a rank, right? So let's say,
And it was the first rank below the amount they wanted.
above.
Or right above, that's right, right above.
So let's say in retirement you wanted to make, we'll use the gold example. If you wanted to make $6,000 or $5,000 rather dollars per month in retirement, you could either put $1 million to work or reach gold. That's the equivalent. And then what's crazy is when you look at the numbers.
Can you say that one more time?
You could,
If you want to make $6,000 a month in retirement.
Yep, you could either put $1 million to work or reach gold. And when you look at the work involved, right, to save $1 million, this is another great stat in this presentation we just saw. The average retired family has $68,000 in savings to retire
At all.
I mean,
At all.
Realistically, $68,000 in their 401k, in their all
At the point of retirement.
At the point of retirement. Okay, so if you look at what they retire on, the average Social Security, and I'm gonna get the numbers a little off, but it was around $1,200 something. That's the average Social Security. The average pension was under $400. So the average retired person retires with $68,000 somewhere, 401 savings somewhere, and about a $1,700 a month income off of Social Security and their pension. Now, in order to make that $1,700 a month, right, they worked 40 years. They worked 40 years, okay? Look at our Young Living comp plan. Let's play the same game. You only increase a rank once every 4 years. You're royal at the time of retirement. You're making $150,000 a month.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think where our teams get caught up, and Chrissy has too. We both have. We see people who gain rank very quickly, right? Those are unicorns. I'm super happy for them. That's amazing. Like Danette Goodyear, and she's not here. I'll say Danette, outside of Christy, is my favorite person.
Yep.
Probably period. Certainly in Young Living, but probably period. And Danette Jim told me that Danette was silver, or around silver, for 7 years. And she hit diamond her 13th year in Young Living. Okay? But you look at the empire, really the empire that they have created in 13 years with Young Living, with the income that they also now produce at Diamond, and I'm like, that's a pretty damn good retirement plan. Pretty damn good retirement plan.
Not to mention all the people that have been helping me.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So when you look at this asset value, and we have to teach our team this. Like, you have a business that produces a paycheck. A job actually has no asset value. You don't own it. You stop going, guess what? The check stops coming. But your Young Living business actually has a real asset value, as if you own the business, because you do own it. It's willable, it's transferable, you can sell it, right? You can will it to your children. So it's a real asset. And it's something, if your spouse isn't on board, and some of you may not have spouses that are fully on board, learning about your business in terms of what it's actually producing an asset value is really important. if your check grew $100, let's say 1,000. If your check grew $1,000 in a given month, you just added $200,000 of value as an asset. Because in order for you to make $1,000 in interest, you would need $200,000 earning 6% interest. So when your check grows $1,000, the way you communicate that, if it were me, if you were talking to me, if you were going to communicate that to me on what you just did, dude, we just grew the value of the business $200,000.
Is that because you multiply by 200?
By 200. Yeah, so 200 is
So
like
to determine, explain the 200 to me. To determine the asset value of your pay increase, you take the pay increase by 200.
Well, the 200 number is like a special number where you could take any number, multiply it by 200, and that will tell you how much money you need working at 6% to generate that first number.
Okay.
Meaning, I want to make $1,000 a month. Okay, I times it by 200, that's 200,000, and that means if I have 200,000 earning 6% interest, it would produce $1,000 a month.
So you're basing it on the 6%.
6%,
Interest.
which is
Okay.
very conservative.
Yeah.
It's very conservative. But I normally do 8%, but the math isn't as simple. So I actually like Ryan's approach of using 6% because it's very quick. You can do very quick business
So you
building.
multiply by 200?
200. If
Whatever the
someone-
monthly is,
Whatever your
multiply
monthly
by
income
200,
is,
that's
by
the asset
200
amount.
and that's
Yeah.
your asset income.
So say someone on your team is like, I need 10 grand a month to retire.
Okay.
Well, fantastic. You can either put $2 million working somewhere, right? Which
Yeah.
is fine. Save $2 million, have that working, or hit platinum. Because average platinum is 14.
Yeah.
14. Yeah. Like that's.
And then what Ryan said was he would go, and here's the equation, and well, which one can you do quicker? And let's just work on that.
And-
He's like, if you could save $2 million quicker, great, let's do that. But he's like, if you can get to gold quicker or platinum, why don't we have some of that?
So, and some people say, well, it's not fair. You're looking at Young Living's ranks, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, because it took 40 years for you to earn $1,700 a month, and we've been at 7 years, and we make a little more than $1,400 a month. Like this is a much better business plan. Like you don't have to be a math genius to look at the IDS and say, okay, 4 decades of work gets me $1,600 a month in retirement with $70,000 in savings, or I can spend 10, 15 years and make $1 million a year. That's fairly easy math, right? All right, so let's talk about the rule of 8. This is something that I am really, there's 2 finance rules that I really like. One is called the rule of 8, and the other is called the power of 72. So first we're going to talk about the rule of 8. When you're looking at, and this is going to help you when you start vision boarding and doing mindset stuff with Kari, and if you're doing any vision casting, you need to think big. Okay? So the rule of 8 is this. If you put money to work generating 8% interest, you only want to take 4%. Because we have inflation, right? Every year your dollar is worth a little bit less, right? So inflation runs at about 3%. Meaning every year that dollar is worth about 3% less. That's why prices continue to go up at about 3% per year, okay? So a simple example is $1 million. You got $1 million working in the market. At 8%, that would produce $80,000 of income. But you can't take all $80,000 because if you took all $80,000 next year, you would also get $80,000, but the $80,000 would buy you less cheeseburgers, right? Because cheeseburgers cost more.
Right.
3%
Here's
more.
that question.
So the rule of 8 says you want your money earning 8% and you want to take out 4%. So it's going to make $80,000. I'm only going to take out 40. So now I've got $1,040,000 the next year earning 8%. And what that lets me do is it lets me have the purchasing power of $40,000 forever. Every month I'll get a little more and a little more, but the purchasing power is about the same. So when you're looking at retirement goals, so what a lot of people do is they'll say, we'll say I want $2 million working because that'll produce $160,000 in income. Not really. If you're diligent, it would produce $80,000 because you need to leave the other 80 in there to grow that nest egg. So when you're looking at your retirement goals, like our personal number as a family outside of Young Living is $10 million. So $10 million is going to make us around $800,000 a year. We're going to take out $400,000, right? Leave the other $400,000 with the nest egg to grow. That coupled with our Young Living income is a pretty, we may have to budget to make it work, But that's our goal as a family. And the other thing I'll tell you is that, and this kind of irks me, and it's not really just our living community, but it's people in general. When you create your goals, it is just as noble for you to say, my goal today is to create financial legacy for my family, get myself out of debt, pay my house off, provide for my kids' college, whatever that looks like for you and your family, your local family, right? That is just as noble as someone who's like, I want to end world hunger. It is just as noble.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's too often that we see, people celebrate we want to end world hunger and call this person selfish, right? And when I look at like mine and Christy's family, we both come from nothing. And our goal still today, because it's creating a legacy that will outlive you is a lot of work, right?
Yep.
So our current goal is providing for our family, creating financial legacy for our family, and preparing our kids for adulthood, and hopefully providing some financial, underpinning for them as well. And that's a lot of work. It might be another decade of work, right? Once we've achieved that goal, guess what? It'll open our minds for bigger goals, right? So we do this exercise with people, and you can do this too. Like I love doing this. I want to pick on somebody who's willing to be vulnerable for a second. You will be? All right.
It was like,
Wait, not a yellow.
All right.
Don't pick a yellow. Pick a red.
No, you jumped up. It's gonna be you.
Okay.
All right, let's pretend you're a Royal Crown Diamond. You're making $150,000 to $200,000 a month. Okay? Give me 3 things that you would buy in month 1, or you would do with the money. Like pay off the house, pay off debt. Give me 3 things.
So I would pay off my car, pay off my house, and I would.
You already paid off your loans.
Yeah, those are our only 2 loans.
You got one more. Give me something.
I would
It could be anything.
save money for my kids.
Okay, perfect. All right, month 2 just hit. I just gave you another $200,000. Can't use the first 3 things. You already fixed those. What are you gonna do with it?
vacation.
I would buy a new house.
Yep.
I want a new house. I would pay off my 2 things, both my parents and my in-laws.
Okay.
Debt.
All right, month 3, $200,000. What are you gonna do? It gets harder, right?
I was like, yeah.
So it gets hard. And all I'm trying to show you is that there's nothing wrong with first taking care of yourself. Because at some point, guess what? She runs out of shit to do with her own money. And she's like, what am I gonna do with it? Now it's a job. I gotta find something to do with 100, well, even if you're not royal, if you're a diamond, I gotta do something with 30 grand a month. What am I gonna do with this? Guess what?
Let's go to Seaside.
Her dreams will get bigger. They have to, or she's gonna drown in money. They will get bigger. And all I say that to say is like, celebrate the person who's at that stage just as much as the person going after the big. We tell people this, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals. I get that, but you know what? Creating a legacy for my family, just as hairy, just as big, just as audacious, right? And when you're working with you're doing vision stuff, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
And
Don't
we're
think
going through
small.
the real steps. Like, what does it take? Like, what does that look like? Because I think that, okay, think big. But then when we get to, okay, what do you do with month 1? And you're like, okay, month 2. What does that look like? And then how does it look to help our people do that?
And you have to think like big. Like it's not, I want to pay off my car. Those are great immediate goals. You should be thinking like, Christian and I went to this legacy conference at Gateway Church recently. And man, I got so emotional. We went to this chat with this guy, Todd and Tom Lane. I think Todd is the dad, Tom is the either way, it doesn't matter.
It's
One's
father,
son,
son.
one's the dad, right? So we go into this breakout session, and the dad is sitting on the. I'm gonna get emotional. Wow, the dad is sitting on the stage talking with his son, and in the background he has this photo. He has this photo of his dad and I think his grandfather, and his son when he was little, and he was talking about the.
Got this.
he was talking about how his grandfather had put in all this work to create this legacy for their family. And then the son, who's my age, is up there talking with his dad, you know. And I came out and I told Christy, it's like, man, I never got that. But what's crazy is I don't view myself as the son anymore. I'm like, I'm the granddad.
That's right.
And I never saw that. Until we went to that conference, and it's like, man, the foundation, like you were talking about, the foundation we're laying today, like I want to build a legacy that like my grandkids know about, my great grandkids know about, right? They'll know who Papa Jake was. Right? Oh, Papa Jake did that. Jim Bob tells this story about his dad, you know, on their land has this foundation, this tiny foundation on his
I don't
family.
know if you'll need it, but just in case in 18 years of teardrops.
On his
For the first time, we'll.
on his land, and they can go out to literally the foundation of the house that, you know, the people who sacrificed initially to build this legacy or his family. It's an actual foundation. And it's just metaphor for like what we're doing for not only our immediate family, but what the things we're doing for our kids and our grandkids. Like it's that important. And I don't know who said it recently at Diamond Dudes, and it also hit me too. They were like, you know, if your goal doesn't take it at least 2 lifetimes to fulfill,
That was Russ.
you're thinking too small.
Yep.
And that's in perspective, because you're like, oh, I'm gonna pay off my house. Okay, well that's not even your lifetime, so man up, think of something bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is crazy, right? All right, so the rule of 8 is the 8%. You're gonna take out 4%. I use this a lot in planning for our family, like a lot. The other rule that I use, and has nothing to do with Young Living, is this thing called Rule of 72. It's just a good finance thing for you to understand. It's another, like we call it, magic number, the Rule of 72. If you want to double your money, you take 72 and you divide it by the interest rate that you're earning, and that will always effectively give you how long it takes to double that amount of money. So, yeah, so you take...
Here goes the formula, guys. Here we go. You ready? Letters and numbers. Here we go.
72 divided by the interest you are earning is how long it takes for money to double. Because let's don't think small, right? We're going to double things. So let's use a simple example.
The time in years, months?
Years.
Years. Okay.
So we'll use a simple example. If you're earning 7% interest, how long will it take your money to double?
72 divided by 7.
10.2 years, right? 72 divided by 7, right? Roughly 10 years. That's math.
There's my people.
Come on, yoga. Come on, yoga.
But the reason I use it's another little simple model that I like to use when I'm thinking about money, right? I'm looking at opportunity, and I'm like, okay, if I put my money here, I can earn this much in interest. I can put it over here, earn this much in interest, and I think about, well, how long does it take that to double? That's important to me, because if you want a lot of money, you gotta double it, right? You gotta double it. So that's another one that I use.
Multiple times.
And then, you know, so those are just some simple things I want to talk to you about, and then I want to kind of, you know, hit you in the mouth a little bit.
I want to hit you in the mouth.
And I'll give you kind of some strategies that we use in our family. And if you, well, I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable again. So who in here has not yet, and I don't know how it works for Australia, it has not yet set up an LLC for their business? That is dumb.
Carolyn?
So listen.
All right.
Over here, boys.
Listen to me.
Surprised.
This is why this is important. If you don't have an LLC,
What is it?
an LLC is a
LTD.
it's exactly what it's like.
What?
Whatever she said. That sounded like an ice cream. I don't know what that
Yes.
Sounded very
TCDY. Yeah,
Here's what
TCDY.
happens. Yeah. Here's what happens in the States, and this happens in most countries, they just call something different. If you don't have a business entity, you're going to get a 1099 from Young Living, right? And they call it something else in Australia, but you're going to get a form that says, I paid you this much money, and now you got to go pay taxes on it. All right, so we call that a 1099 here. Let's use simple math. Let's say Young Living pays you $100,000 over the course of the year. And at the end of the year, they give you your 1099. Here you go. You made $100,000. Without having a business entity, you're paying taxes on $100,000. And because it's 1099 income, you're paying something called self-employment tax. So self-employment tax is around 15.4%. And then you're also paying income tax on top of that. Okay?
How much is self-employment?
Self-employment's around 15.4%, 15.2%. I can't remember the exact number. And then you're paying income tax, right? Now, income tax, and I'm gonna really boil some of this down because some people don't actually understand the way income tax works. Income tax is what's called a graduated system, and what that means is, for your first, say, 15,000, you pay. I forget what the current scale is, but I'll just make stuff up. Yeah, you'll pay 15% for the first 15,000, and then from 15,000 to 30,000, you're gonna pay this percent. So it's graduating, stair step, okay?
More you make, more you pay.
Well, as you earn more, guess what? That caps out now at 37%. So for some people, they're paying 37% income tax plus the 15.2%. So over half of your money is just going back to the government. So the reason you need an entity, and I'm being dead serious about this, if you don't get this done, it's not an option. You've got to form.
Do you have a specific? Because that was my plan, like just having moved over here,
Yep.
like I need to look into what I need to do. So
Yes.
I'm glad you're talking about it. But is there a specific like rank that you say like it's non-negotiable? You need to set up LLC now.
Here's my litmus test for that. Is this a business?
Yeah.
Does that matter what rank you are?
No.
All right. If this is a business for someone, then start treating it like a business.
Yeah.
Businesses are entities, and entities pay salary, and entities put money back for taxes. Like,
Yeah.
if you start treating it like a business, it will actually be a business a lot faster. That's my personal belief. From a financial standpoint, yeah, maybe once they're hitting senior star or executive and there's a little bit of cash flow that's not just paying for the oils, that's probably when I would look at it practically.
Yeah.
So you need an LLC. An LLC has nothing to do with the IRS. Okay? The IRS doesn't even know what an LLC is. That's just a legal entity that protects you. What you want to do is when you become an LLC, you can file a document, and it's what lets you be taxed as an S corp. Okay? And this is what that gives you now. If you're an LLC taxed as an S corp, guess what? You now own a company, and you are also an employee of the company. And what do employees get?
Money.
Salary. So we'll use the same $100,000 example. If you're making $100,000 now from your living, that's going into your business account, your LLC's account, and it's going to pay you a salary less than $100,000. So let's just, and I'm using fake numbers, but let's pretend it's going to pay you a $50,000 salary. Well, there's still 50 grand, right? Well, guess what? You own the company. So all you do is you make a profit distribution to yourself of $50,000. But the reason we structure it that way is because you will not pay full taxes on that $50,000 you do as a profit distribution. So it will save you a mountain of taxes.
Wow.
Like a mountain of taxes. And it's a very simple thing to do.
Yep.
You have a question?
Yeah, and I'm like far from numbers, so
That's okay.
something to ask me a question. But like numbers are not my thing. So set up an LLC, right?
Yep.
For my business.
Correct.
Now my husband has a spouse account now, and he is trying to. Well, no, he is. He's starting a business.
Mhm.
I know. Like
I appreciate your contribution.
yes. So can you have two accounts in one LLC, or would you
Yes.
have to have two?
Well, if you have an LLC, you and your husband could be members of that LLC for like your
Oh, so
account.
like they're both employees.
Correct. So you can structure that a number of different ways.
Okay.
So Christy and I, for example, we have an LLC that runs her Young Living business. I have an LLC for what's called Dempsey Holdings. Dempsey Holdings owns a lot of things like part of Starter Step, commercial property now. some other stuff. But you can do that a couple different ways.
Okay.
And it depends on how y'all want to structure it, on like how you should do it. Young Living recently, it used to be, right, when they allowed spouse accounts, they said at the beginning, oh, well, your spouse account can't be on your LLC. If you have an LLC, you have to change it, which is it's not that big of a deal, but it's kind of a headache. But they recently, I don't remember when, but it was sometime last year, said,
4 months
you know
ago,
what, that's
6 months
okay.
ago.
If you already have an existing LLC, your husband's part of the owner of that LLC, he can still have his own spouse account, okay? So LLC, go ahead.
Sorry. So I own a photography company and I have an LLC through that.
Yep.
With that, could I claim
Yes.
my Young Living
Yep.
under that LLC?
Yes.
So I don't need an additional LLC for
Right.
my Young Living.
No, you do not. So think of
It's all about
the
lies under our chiropractor.
think of the LLC as a place for money to come into, right? It's where revenue starts. And then this is what we do. This is what we do for Christy's business. And there are different.
Instead of another.
There's different recommendations depending on who you talk to. Here's what we do. You don't have to do this exact same thing, but here's what we do. At the end of the day, it's my belief, if the family doesn't benefit financially from Christy's work, it's not worth it. Right? In Christy's business early, and this is really before I kind of came into the picture, she spent every dime of her check. Most of it giving it away as gifts to the people in her team. Yeah, imagine that. So what happened was,
It's a lot of unicorn
tax
rollers.
time.
It was a lot of roller.
It was tax
A lot of
time.
smelly earrings.
And Christy had to pay nothing for taxes. So not only was the family not benefiting from the Young Living business, it put an additional burden on the family to pay for the taxes for this business, right? Not cool.
Cue the marriage
And
counselor.
we've talked to even diamonds who still, and don't think you're singled out here. There's literally diamonds that have no LLC,
Lots.
put nothing back for taxes,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And they
when
stress
we-
out
when
every
we sit in
year.
groups and we all start talking about it, and we start talking, they go, oh, I don't even have a CPA. We're like,
What?
Yeah.
like whoa.
So what we do every month,
So don't be those people.
we have multiple accounts, okay? And this is how I think you should structure it too. Christy has an LLC. We have a revenue checking account. This should be an account where only income gets added to it. If you sell your team books, if you get a paycheck from Young Living, if you speak at an event, income, it goes into the revenue account. So we, as a family, have a simple rule. And again, there's different opinions on this. I like simplicity. Simplicity usually wins the day. 50% of Christy's income goes to the family. Now it goes to the family in two ways, because we're an LLC, taxed as an S corp, right? So part of the 50% is salary. The other part is profit distribution. So we'll use a simple number. Let's say she gets a check for 30 grand. The family's getting $15,000, period. Well, the family's going to get $15,000 partly because we're paying her salary from her business, and then whatever's $15,000 minus her salary, we do as a profit distribution. So the family gets 50%. 20% goes into another checking
What
account.
would that salary, what all do you
Yeah, how
include
do
in
you
that
figure that
salary?
How do we pick the salary?
Yeah.
Oh, we just picked it.
No, but
Yeah.
Well, you do. You just like figure out what you want out of it.
Yeah.
You can talk to your CPA about it.
Yeah, the IRS's legal definition is that you have to pay yourself.
Reasonable.
It literally says a reasonable salary.
Okay.
So as long as you can defend don't pay yourself $10 salary.
Right. You can't. You can't do like $5 a month. That's
What
not
about
reasonable.
100%?
You pay yourself, yeah.
No.
Yeah, but if you
You
pay
gotta
100%, you're paying
reinvest.
taxes on 100%.
You're paying too much in taxes.
You might as well have
So
a
you're
sole
putting away
corp.
a reasonable amount.
Yep.
Not to, that you're gonna pay taxes on.
Correct.
Okay.
And the profit
Yep.
distribution.
And the profit
less
distribution is
tax
correct.
to us.
Got
Right.
Right.
And for Jake in our situation, he's saying 50. Is it
50% goes to the
is-
family. It's just that
So
50%.
We need
that's
40%.
50%?
Yes, 50% goes to the family. 30% goes into a savings account, still owned by the LLC. That is the tax savings account. And this is, I catch grief from so many people on this, and they're dumb because they're not thinking about it. Your 30%
goes to tax.
Now, at the end of the year, you will owe less in taxes than is in that account.
Because of write-offs and other stuff.
Because your expenses and write-offs for the business will be less. It'll be less than that 30%. But if you're only putting money back just to cover taxes and you're not thinking about how you can actually defer some money, and we'll talk about that in just a second, that you're not thinking fully. So 30% goes into a savings account. There is no debit card tied to it. There is no checks, obviously. That's your tax account. And then the last 20% goes into a checking account. It has checks. It has a debit card. That is Christy's business expense account. So if Christy gets a check for 30 grand, $6,000 goes into her business expense account. She can do whatever she wants. If she wants to burn it or buy Power to the One oils for everybody.
Power to the one.
It's one cube.
So that 20% is for her to her business.
Right.
So if she wants to go to convention, if she wants to buy rank up gifts, if she wants to take someone out to dinner or coffee, that's where that money comes from. And some months she spends every dime of it. And some months she doesn't, because she's planning for something like this, right? Like this takes a couple months to save up some extra funds to be able to cover that. But that checking account is where she runs her business. So family gets 50%, tax account gets 30%, business gets 20%. She runs the business off of 20%. Now, again, where the difference in opinions lie is at what rank do you do what percent, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, it's simple. Your family better be making something off of what you're doing. Otherwise, your spouse is like, what the hell are you doing? Because that was me.
That was why we had such, butting heads for a long time. Because he's like, how can you be gone all this time and we get nothing, like, for months after months after months?
There were times where Christy would make 8-10 grand before I even came on board, even as a gold, almost a platinum. And at the end of the month, family literally got nothing other than a tax bill. Because now I owe $2,000 for your $8,000 check. So you just cost.
And let me just tell you, because the problem is that a lot of women too that love to give gifts as a love language. When you have, and what happened was Jake was like, sure, do this little network marketing hobby thing, but just don't mess with our checking account. I'm like, game on, I get to give all the gifts and all the things, right? But the downside was it wasn't duplicatable.
No.
And my people that watched me give like crazy, like the recipients, of course, were super excited, the ones that won or got whatever, but then those leaders that were rising up were like, I can't duplicate that, right? Like their Young Living income was actually a portion of their living expense money, you know? So
you want to see your team like blessed, right? Even financially, you want to see them blessed. Well, guess what you have to do? You have to model to them what that looks like. Like if you're modeling literally spending everything and doing like overdoing the whole time, they're like, I can't do that. So you have to meter it a little bit, right? Because you're modeling to them. This is what it looks like to grow in success.
You said that 50% of the income goes to family, and part of that's salary, and part is profit distribution.
Yep.
What is profit distribution?
All right. So if you make $100,000, we'll create an example. You make $100,000 with Young Living. You're going to pay yourself a $50,000 salary. That means in that revenue account, there's still 50 grand. You literally just transfer that money to your personal checking account, and that's called a profit distribution because you own the company.
You coded that. Your CPA does this.
It's like hard salary / profit distribution.
No. Yes.
That's the same thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's just that salary is a more formal thing.
Hold on.
She's not understanding. There's 100,000 in. 50,000 of it is your income. The other 50K has to be accounted for because by law you have to drain that entity by the end of the year.
Well, honestly, let's do a full example. We're gonna do a full example. You make $100,000 a year. Okay. Let's just do a full example. We'll just make something up on the fly. If you make $100,000 with Young Living, you wouldn't pay yourself, in practicality, you probably wouldn't pay yourself a $50,000 salary. You would pay yourself something like a $35,000, $40,000 salary. Because what you really want to do is at the end of the year, you want to make sure your family got 50 grand. Well, I don't want it all to be salary because I just pay taxes on all that 50 grand. I want to make some of it salary, some of it profit distribution. So you'd probably pay yourself like a $35,000 or $40,000 salary. Let's just pretend we're going to do $35,000. Okay? Family's going to get 50 grand by the end of the year. I'm only paying myself a $35,000 salary. That other $15,000 that makes up the half that the family's getting, I'm just going to do a transfer from the revenue account to my personal checking. $15,000.
And the revenue account's where you dump all the check into, right?
It's
Jake?
What?
The revenue is basically where you dump your whole check from Young Living into, and then you distribute from there.
Right, and we call it revenue account just because we have like different sources of revenue, and you want it all to go in one bucket. This is where all the money that we make for this entity goes into this bucket.
So then you have one place to document where everything went to.
Right.
Yeah, so let's just walk through
One
this
account that goes.
Just for your LLC though.
Yep.
That's what I was wondering.
No. This
All
is
your LLCs aren't going into one revenue account.
No, we have different revenue accounts per LLC.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Correct.
Each LLC has their own revenue budget.
So say next month, so we're doing $100,000. So next month there was $10,000.
Like your check was 10 grand.
The check was 10 grand.
Yep.
So you would put 5,000 into the revenue checking.
No.
No.
All
All of it.
10 grand goes into revenue in
Okay.
the revenue account.
Then you.
Now we're going to do the math.
Okay.
I'm putting 2,000 into her spending account.
The
I'm putting-
spending for personal?
For
or
business.
For business
For
spending, okay, that's
I'm
the
gonna
20%.
Yep. I'm gonna
Okay.
put 3,000 into the tax savings account,
Okay.
and now there's 5,000 the family has to get. But because we're paying salary, you got to do a little bit of math. So if I'm paying her a $35,000, we'll do 36 because the math is easier. If I'm paying her a $36,000 salary, that's $3,000 a month, right? So I've got $5,000 that I have to give the family. Well, $3,000 she's going to get through the payroll company, which means I got to do a $2,000 profit distribution because her $3,000 salary plus the $2,000 profit distribution is the $5,000 that the family should get. Does that make sense?
So can you do profit distributions monthly?
Yep.
Quarterly. So
So
whatever you want.
I thought you wouldn't payroll.
Well, I do payroll, but I mean, you need a company to issue payroll.
Oh, so you're not saying give yourself a salary, like
I'm talking about a
transfer it
real-
to your personal account?
No.
You have a
Write
real
yourself a
person?
check
Yes.
that takes taxes
Oh,
out.
Here's the thing: if you went to work for Starbucks, what do they give you every week? A paycheck. Yeah. You're an employee. When you own a business like an LLC,
You're working for yourself.
You are an employee of a company that you just also happen
You're
to
an
own.
employee of your own company, your own LLC,
Yeah.
right?
You just got to get your bookkeeper
You're an
to
employee
set
of
it
your
up.
own
Which is,
LLC.
that's no, like, my parents give you your own, they still earning
Yes.
It's your CPA or your bookkeeper just transfers it to where you get a So check.
I
I
use
use
QuickBooks. I pay like $30 a month
Right.
for all my businesses. They file all my taxes. They
Yep.
file my payroll taxes. And they do all that.
and there's a company I
It's
use.
like an accountant, right? Is that or
Yeah,
a program
there's a-
and accountant
you can.
for you
There's
to
a com-
manage the shift of the money.
Right.
You're not like letting somebody else like own the money.
I mean, you No. can, but you don't
But-
need to do that anymore.
You don't need to do that.
I use a company called Gusto.
Yes.
So Gusto is just an online
Switch
payroll
this.
company. And I do this even for Starter Step, right? I got 10
Keeps
employees
you out of
for
trouble
Starter
with
Step.
Yeah.
So Gusto, I put in all my employees, I put what their salary is, and then every month on whatever, the 26th, because it has to pull out the money before the 1st, right? Every month on the 26th, it says, hey, I'm pulling out this much money from your account, and I'm going to pay your employees. So you would set that up for your business.
Go ahead. I just want to say something when you're done.
You would set up a payroll for you, the employee. It's just also you're the owner. So guess what? You're going to get a salary and you're going to get a profit distribution. And we split that up because you pay a lot less taxes on the profit distribution.
Right.
So the thing you learn about me, I'm super transparent. I'll answer anything you want. So like us, for example, if Christy makes $400,000, we pay her an $80,000 salary. If we did on $400,000, we pay her an $80,000 salary. Now, if we had no LLC and we just got a 1099 for $400,000, the government is gonna get a Lamborghini, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we pay Christy an $80,000 salary,
Okay.
and then that $320 that's left has gone to taxes, her expenses, and then we profit distribution the rest of it. So whatever that rest is, we pay a lot less taxes on. A lot less taxes. Okay? You have a question?
Now, the thing I was going to say about the percentages and like, hey, put the 20% here, 30% here, 40%.
Yeah.
The thing that's so important about doing that, no matter what the rank, like,
Yep.
hey, I'm at senior star, I'm at executive, I'm at silver. It's no different than tithing or anything else. If you don't do it at senior star, you will not do it at diamond.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, like, even if you're like, well, I only make $1,000 a month, what am I going to do? Take $400 over here? Yes, you sure as hell will. Like, you do this little bit here because it's just training you.
In
it's
habits,
training your
yeah.
family on how to go, okay, I'm moving this here, this here, this here. And it gets the system in place so that when you are making big money, you're stewarding it well. And you're putting it where it needs to go.
If you model this to your team, right, the average silver check is like $2,200.
Yeah.
Okay? Which means the family should get around $1,100. Part of that'll be salary, part will be distribution. Okay? If you, and I mean this like sincerely, if you like seeing your team blessed, $1,000 a month to a family is an insane amount of money. People don't realize there's a ton of studies that show $500 a month actually changes a family's entire financial outlook.
Yeah, I think Jim Bob actually was one that I first heard that from when we were talking in one of the
$500
classes,
a month
how much
lets
changes a
them take
marriage
a
a
vacation
month.
they
300,
can't take.
300,
$500
300, yeah.
lets them put their kids in a sport that they weren't able to afford. $500 helps them make a car payment that they weren't able to make the previous month. $500.
Yeah.
So if you've got
Because that
someone
study
that's
on
a
marriages, what would
silver
have changed it and they would have stayed
that's
together.
not doing this, and they're spending, overspending on their paycheck, they're missing this big blessing they could have in their family.
by stewarding it correctly.
Jake, sorry, I said that for a hot second. So if you answer this, sorry. When we're talking about the distributions and the part that goes to the family, the essential rewards order, is that in the family part or is that in the investing back into the business? Because it's complex because so many of our products are, your laundry detergent is part of what will go
Yeah,
back
we
to
have a
the
system for
family.
that.
So how do we do
Here's
that?
what we do, and everyone does this differently.
And is it very hot in here?
It is.
We can close the
Who knows
windows.
how to turn it down?
It was too cold.
Okay, we need to I think Jake's sweating, I'm sweating. If anybody knows how to deal with the thermostat, who knows?
Why don't we just turn the fan on?
The windows have what?
I think it's that. Isn't it right there on the wall?
I'm about to pass out, so we're gonna need some.
Fast.
I'm about to pass out.
I'm like, oh, it's finally nice, and I'm not.
I know, we need fans of the air.
Need blanket.
I understand
Oh, what did you say?
How are you feeling? Yeah.
Oh, do you have it? I just adjusted. Do you have
Are you live? Hi.
Okay, but no, wait.
My head's not blocking your
Don't
video.
make sure you don't forget.
Oh, no, you're not. You're fine.
Sorry.
What was your question?
Sorry, I sidetracked with the key. The essential rewards, how do we budget that in? Is that what goes back to the family?
Right. How do you put in essential rewards?
It's a little funny. So every month we get Chrissy's paycheck and I do this math. I say 20% to her expense account, 30% to taxes, 50% is going to go to the family. Got to do a little bit of funny math because part of the 50 is salary, part is distribution, right?
Yep.
What we do, which you do not have to do it this way. Everyone does this differently. What we do is we say, you know what? $600 a month, the family is going to cover on our Young Living purchases because Christy loves Young Living products, like $2,000 to $3,000 a month loves it.
That does not cover.
Yes, please.
Yep.
So when we do the math,
Y'all didn't say that.
when we do the math, when we get that 50% over here for the family, we take $600 off of that and put that also in her business.
20 in the
expense account.
20% part that
And
I get to keep to run my
our
business.
order, she takes out of the business expense account because we've agreed as a family, the family will cover 600. Anything over 600, Christy, because you're buying all the things, that's your business expense.
No freedom kit.
Yes. When the freedom kit comes back and we already own 4 and you buy more, hey,
I didn't own 4.
I'm just saying.
But no, but I love that.
Rewriting your house.
Like Christy.
So that's like the family, so that 600, if you will.
I only have one.
This is what our family, this is what the Dempseys are using this month.
Yep.
This is so $600 of the family is going back in there because that's our laundry detergent, our
Yep.
Our
toothpaste,
Nisha,
our Nisha.
Right.
Okay, and I think that's a really important thing to share with our teams because that when we get people who don't see the value of the promos and they're like, but my family needs the money, and I'm like, but hold on, we have to think about that. These are things that your family's already purchasing.
Yeah.
They don't take the laundry so
And it's modeling too, right? Like you're modeling.
Jordan.
And that's why I'm like, you're not swapping out.
Did you hear
Yeah,
her?
you gotta transfer by it.
Or we're
To the point where people are, but they're not looking at it as a home expense, they're looking at it only as a
as a
business
business
expense.
expense, not a home expense.
So they're like, well, I can only
Okay,
spend
but and this is where it gets really fuzzy. And I'm transparent. I don't care. With our level of income, our Young Living expense is marginal. So we write off all of our Young Living expenses.
Yes, sir.
Because when we look at everything collectively, it's this much smaller piece of the puzzle. And I even talked to our CPA about this. I'm like, are we kind of dancing in the gray area by doing that? And he's like, it's such a marginal amount compared to the larger picture. I'm fine with it. And I'm like, well, I'm fine with it. So that's going to vary by family.
And it varies by CPA,
It totally varies by CPA.
100%.
Yes. Like,
which is important. So
yeah, like one CPA may say, you can write off $100 a month because that's what you have to you do to get your check. That's what one CPA will say. Another CPA will say, nope, you can't write off anything. Even $100 per month is optional. It's not a requirement for you to be in the business, right?
It is. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's all about the CPA.
It's all about
Yeah,
CPA.
But it's not a requirement for me to spend money on advertising.
No, but you're arguing
Yeah.
things. It's all
I'm
about
just
the
saying,
CPA.
I'm telling you,
Whether or not you're premium your taxes.
Right.
about the tax
Yeah, that's it.
They're defending your taxes.
And the CPA is going to have a different viewpoint on this. The same thing with the salary, by the way. So some CPAs are going to tell you your salary should be 40 to 50% of what you make, right? And you're like, so when I'm RCD, I should make a $500,000 salary? No. If I own a bakery and the bakery is super, super successful and I'm the baker, I'm going to pay myself a salary based on what a reasonable baker is going to make. And anything above that is a profit distribution. So your CPA, it totally depends on their style, right? And at the end of the day, what really matters is what is defendable, right? What is defendable? Can you go into an audit, and I do this with Starter Step, I pay myself a reasonable salary for what a software developer makes in a company. Yes, I own the company, and we make a lot more than that, but just because the company makes a lot more than that doesn't mean I should be paying a lot more tax. I mean, no, you're stupid.
Yeah.
So some CPAs are going to say, no, it needs to be 40, 50% of what your total income is. We don't do that.
So then do you just go and find a new CPA? Like if you would have
there's
said that to you.
a few things. If a CPA says to me, they're fired.
Yeah.
Like if they work in these pure absolutes like that, well, your salary every year your salary's
It has to be this.
So I'm sorry, you're fired. We are not in alignment on what level of risk is defendable from my perspective.
If
So
they
you
don't
can't
respect
represent
network
me,
marketing.
which is all they're doing.
This is the level of being a grown up. I don't that makes me really uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
Me too. Like that has been the reason I haven't taken these steps
Okay.
because I don't know how to find that
Right.
person and defend myself at the level that is.
But now you have people that you, like I write out my entire essential rewards order, right?
Because your person agrees
That
with
agrees,
yours.
right. So now you know that people do that at our level. Like if you are a star and you are writing off all of these trips that you're making and purchases that you're making and your income is $100 that month, it's not going to look, and most people would say, I understand that. So if you're making a decent income and you believe, okay, my essential rewards order, that 300 PV or 400 PV and stuff this month should be written off, or you know what, and that quick order for that freedom bundle that I got should be written off because I'm gonna hold a class.
Yeah, I'm taking
next week.
pictures.
I'm taking pictures and I'm sampling it with my members. Then if your accountant is saying no, you've heard other people say that they do that, then you go find somebody
They don't
else.
share your viewpoint.
What are
They don't
your
share your viewpoint.
non-negotiables for a CPA? What were, you said there were some red flags, what would those be that you
The
would?
salary thing's big for me. This is what you're going to learn about your business in general in Young Living, okay? As you start to make more money in Young Living, the view that you should be taking on finances is going to vary drastically from money managers. If you have 401s today, if you have retirement accounts today, you have to understand like you're shifting into a different and I'm not trying to say this in an egotistical way, you're shifting into a different bracket that they can't comprehend.
Yep.
So when you talk to people about money and someone says they're a millionaire, what does that mean to you? If I say I'm a millionaire, what does that mean to you? Well, like in your mind, what does that mean?
They have a
Have $1 million in assets, right? Well, in Living, people make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
That's a total different, like you're in another, that is professional athlete level income, okay? So what we have that most people don't have is this really highly leveraged income. You should not be taking large risks with your income when you're in Young Living because what you have that most people have is a large amount of leverage on the income. So you don't need to go for home runs. You need to put money to work that generates a moderate return because what you have that other people don't have is the ability to add more fuel to that fire at a rate that other people can't do. So like for us, we have a 401k for my LLC, for Christie's LLC. We put about 120 grand a year into our 401ks. So just I want you to think about this mentally. The average retired person retires with $68,000 to their name after 40 years of effort. We're able to put $120,000 a year into those same retirement accounts. So when you go talk to a money manager, right, and he's of the mindset of, hopefully by the time you retire, we're going to get about $70,000 to $100,000 saved for you. But you're in the mindset of, well, no, I'm putting $100 a year in there.
Yeah.
He is not going to be able to comprehend and manage what you. I'm telling you, guaranteed, not going to be able to comprehend and manage what you're working with. So you have to start thinking about money very differently because you have this huge opportunity, this huge leverage. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, so you're saying like you're comparing your Young Living business to retirement.
Yep.
But like most people when they retire, they like sit in their underwear and watch TV.
Yep.
But if you're a platinum or diamond or whatever, gold in Young Living, you're like working real hard. And so
Well, and it's defined differently too for each person. Yeah, we define it different.
My hope for her, honestly, my hope for her is at some point she grows her Young Living business to the point that, you know what, she can harvest some. Like right now she's in the planting season, right? She's out planting and loving on people and watering those crops. But at some point, I want her to be able to pump the brakes and harvest that work. Like I saw this actually last year. April Pointer, who I admire immensely, this lady busted her butt for years and years and years. And last year, I remember telling Christy, every post I saw on Facebook, April and the family was like, in Galapagos, and here, and I'm like, they're harvesting. She put in all that work, and she has so many people and diamonds and royals under her now. That thing is a machine. If she just pumps the brakes a bit, guess what? It's still going to go. Christy hit crown while at
I think it was at the animal conference in Utah, the first animal conference there.
So even
and Gary
if,
was there, that
even
was so
if
sweet.
today, if Christy said, you know what, man, I really would like to take some time off, I'm convinced even if she fell all the way back down to platinum, she's still making 20 to 30 grand a month. Like that's not a bad retirement. not bad.
But the other thing is too, and Jake and I talk about this a lot, is because our families and families that deal with poverty mentality and how they view what retirement looks like to them versus what we feel retirement should look like. Because guys, I'm telling you, if your goal is to aim to get to some place where you can, like you're saying, sit in your underwear and do nothing but watch TV and veg out, you're a vegetable. Like you might as well just be hooked up to a machine. You're not really doing anything that's purpose-filled or exciting. And so aren't you always going to want to do something that feels purpose-driven? And so that's what makes you live a long, awesome life, is when you're contributing. So like when he was saying our legacy and that kind of thing and what we're focused on is our family, and at some point when we feel like that's secure for the next generation, well then it opens up our opportunities to do other things. And I've got visions and things that I would love to do that are more like philanthropic, right? And like
but you remember when we first got married?
Yes.
She went and volunteered somewhere.
So when I was in college, I was part of APO, which is Alpha Phi Omega. It's a co-ed service fraternity, and I loved all the service stuff that we got to do. And I came back home, and I'd be at a battered women's shelter, or I'd be at Gotta Have a Heart, where we like helped the kids on the horses and walked them around that had special needs and all these things. And I come home and I'm like, Jake, I know what I really want to do with my life. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I've got to be able to serve and give back. And he goes,
I was like, that takes money.
He's like, that requires the fact that you still got to pay a light bill, you still got a mortgage, you still got food that needs to be on the table. Like, you don't get to check out of life just because you're a good person and want to give back to everybody else, right?
Like my brain just went blank. What's the Young Living Foundation one that's doing the ending like the trafficking?
Hope for Justice.
Hope for Justice, yes.
So do you think Hope for Justice could actually go and pull girls out of this sex trafficking without large sums of money?
No.
And don't you think they have to market? They got to run their business and their books. They've got to like promote and all these other things in order to have that income coming. Like they're actually working to get the income, right? There's always work involved where there's money and change involved, right? Like you can't just assume that you can sit around and change the world and somehow, you know what I'm saying? Like it really was sobering to me to hear him say that. And I actually got a little defensive. I'm like, what? And he's like, you know, I mean, like, because I'm thinking like Mother Teresa and Gandhi and all these things, you know, like,
yeah, because Mother Teresa traveled the world for free. And,
like it takes somebody's helping that person get around. And I think it takes a mindset shift in realizing like you do get that opportunity to do things and you can retire. Retirement can look however you want it to, but it is going to require money. And if your goal is to sit and do nothing, you're going to get tired, you're going to get depressed, you're going to get lonely and isolated. Like your retirement picture should look like something that you're contributing or doing something still, right? Whether that's
For me, you know, and maybe it's just my personality, I am less excited about Christy's paycheck than I am about what goes towards our wealth, like our wealth. A paycheck is just a paycheck. There's no wealth in a paycheck, right? Because if you get a paycheck and you spend it all, how much wealth did you say? You get no wealth.
Yeah.
So what what excites me is when we are looking at, well, how do we use our income to actually produce wealth? Because I know a lot of people making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and they are broke. Legit broke.
That was us. At our chiropractic office, I mean, we were making almost $60,000 a month, and we were broke as a joke and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Wow.
And that's not uncommon in the chiropractic.
Oh yeah, I mean, we were literally hundreds with an S of thousands of dollars in debt, business debt, making $700,000 a year, going home with maybe $3,000 a month, maybe.
Wow.
Because of our overhead. Our
Hoping
overhead
your
was almost
family gave you
$50,000
cash
a
for
month.
So when you're looking at your living,
Wow.
remember we said 50 to the family, 20 to the business, 30 to taxes. The reason we do 30% to taxes, Christy's tax bill actually ends up being less than 30% of her income because of write-offs. But putting 30% away lets me at the end of the year figure out how do I defer taxes. I mean, how do I save even more money on taxes?
Okay.
And there's really two ways to do it for our business. There are two easy ways. There's a lot of ways, there's two easy ways. One is using a thing called a SEP. So a SEP means self-employed pension, I think is what it stands for. All right, when you create a SEP, you can put up to 25% of your income or $53,000 in a year. So if you know anything about investing, there's a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. You know what those are? Okay, so a Roth IRA means I'm going to earn money tax-free on that, but I got to pay taxes on the contribution today. That's called a Roth. But once you make over 100 grand, guess what? The government doesn't let you put money in a Roth. Okay? Then you have a traditional IRA. A traditional IRA says, I'm going to put money into an IRA, and when I pull it out later, age 59 and a half and older, that's when I'll pay taxes on it. So I'm deferring to pay taxes on that. But guess what? There's limits on a traditional IRA. It's usually like $5,000, $6,000 a year. Well, when you're self-employed, you can do a SEP, which is the exact same thing as a traditional IRA, but the limit is 25% up to, I think it's $53,000 a year. Now, if
But you can't do it if you don't have a payroll.
You
have to be on payroll.
You have to be on payroll, and you can't do it if you're spending all your money.
Right.
So that 30% lets me at the end of the year look at Christy's actual tax liabilities and say, boom, yes, I got this much now to put into either a SEP or a 401. We do a 401 mainly because, let's do simple math. If you wanted to put $50,000 in a SEP, remember max is 25%. You have to pay yourself a $200,000 salary, right? Because 25% of 200,000 is 50 grand. Well, I'm not paying Christy a $200,000 salary, right? We do a 401k because it allows me to put $18,500 employee contribution, meaning from Christy's paycheck, and then the employer, which guess what? Well, that's Christy's business.
Nice.
That can also make a contribution. So I can get the $50-some-odd-thousand deferred, but not have to pay her a ginormous salary to do it. Because if I pay her a ginormous salary, what is she doing? Paying taxes on the ginormous salary. So we do a 401k. If you're just getting started, the SEP is easier. It is. So if you pay yourself, you get an LLC, S corp, pay yourself a salary, doing a SEP is super simple. You figure out, well, what's my salary? We'll pretend it's that, 40 grand a year. What's 25% of that? 10 grand. Great, I could put 10 grand into a SEP. I'm paying no taxes on the 10 grand. Later in life, when I pull that out, I'll pay the taxes on it. And this is what excites me, right? So every month or every year, I'm putting money into these accounts for us. Again, don't care about our income. Income's great, but when you spend it, it doesn't produce wealth. What I like to see is, oh man, look at our 401k, it's crazy this, and recently, oh, it makes me so excited. And then we've been saving to do, some additional investing, and literally yesterday we finally closed on this large commercial property that I went into with some partners, because that commercial property is going to throw off income every single month, which is real wealth. And then the commercial property also has a value that is going to grow over time, so that's creating wealth. And what I look for in our family is, where can I put money? My analogy, which, you know, maybe not PC, but I don't care. My analogy is, money is soldiers. Money represents soldiers. And you want to send them to battle and bring back prisoners of war. Your money should be going out and fighting for you and bringing back friends. And if your money's not doing that, well, I mean, what are you doing with it? It's just sitting in a bank account, or it's, well, if you're spending it, it really ain't going to make you money. But you have to start figuring out how to isolate some of that and put it to work in some way. Whether you're deferring money, investing smartly. You have a question, sorry.
Yes. Is there a minimum that you can put in a SEP? Like, say we open one.
If you want to put $100 in a SEP, you can do it.
Okay.
Do you have to do it monthly, or can you do it the
I do it at the end of the year. I do it at the end of the year.
And I was gonna say, I feel like for some people, like Jake, at least for me, like this was a major blocker, is because my husband, even though he knows this stuff, doesn't have the time to work my business with me. Doesn't have the time. So I had to take this on, and I had a lot of blockers. And like when people started talking to me about, oh, you're gonna need an IRA, you're gonna need this, you're gonna need, like I started like literally almost emotionally shutting down because the action steps. So I want you guys to know that like this was all like recent things for me that I started doing. And you can find somebody that will help you set all these up. Like I'm on an automated system. I'm on the phone with ADP. I'm like, you need to talk to me like I'm a kindergartner. I need you to step me through this. Okay, and then I'll call my 401k people. I'm like, yeah, I need to get, this is the virtual money to me because I don't really see, like I know it kind of goes here and here, but I've never seen the, I mean, I see it because I can log in. Like explain how I access this. Explain how this comes here. Like there are places that will help you set up whatever accounts you need, and that just like we have member services that you can call and ask them things. So don't feel like you have to kind of like know everything. You just you need to take this first step, and it's okay to ask like I did and say, you're gonna need to talk to me like I'm 5 and I'm in kindergarten and I don't understand anything.
And this is seriously where you're cross-line friends, because what she's not telling you is like we have a group, this is how this whole retreat came about, that 10 of us hit diamond in the same month. And so of course there's like subsets of that are broken off now, but there's 3 of us that daily talk about this stuff. And so not only the personality, like how do I be fun in my group because I'm not fun, but you're fun. And then like, hey, who's financial planner have you? And so on the poverty mentality side, for me, it was really hard before we got into this to bring up like check amounts of what we're doing with stuff. But we have come to this knowledge because we've got friends like Jake who are an open book that'll tell Jim Bob, and then and the diamond groups. Like it is the biggest advantage to you hitting diamond is to get in that diamond chat and be around other people who dream bigger than you and who teach you how to walk this stuff out. Because
stuff.
Oh yeah.
But
we walked.
We're buying a vacation rental property. We've already committed before convention. We're buying a vacation rental property together in Broken Bow, which is in Oklahoma. But like
Cindy and I are super excited about that. Yes, we are.
At Diamond Dudes, which we have for advanced, we were just talking about this. Like, man, we have all of these people that share, to some degree, similar aspirations for their profession, for their family, right, for their health. And over time, as we grow in this business, we produce this additional income. We're giving it to people we don't really know or trust, right? Okay, he's my money guy. Well, but does he really have your best interest at heart? And then I look at people like, you know, Jim Bob and their family, and like their family is walking the same walk we're walking. They have similar like financial goals as we do, family goals, like faith goals, and I'm like, dude. We just talked about this. We're like, why don't we lock arms and do something together?
Over barbecue, we were like, why don't we do it together? You're like, okay, fist bump, let's do it.
And this is where it gets really fun because, you know, if people look at money in general and they look at the income disclosure statement and I see, you can see this in people. You sit with someone and you show them the income disclosure statement and their body language shifts and they kind of shut down, and what they're saying internally is they're not worth that number.
And their brain and their heart sometimes can't compute it.
Yeah, they're not worth that number. And
their brain may understand it, but their heart can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
And if they're struggling with that number at executive or silver or gold, I mean, RCD to them looks like
Yeah.
nobody
Right.
does that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody
Mm-hmm.
makes that. And the reality is that they're worth it, and you have to help them see that in themselves. And then as you start making that income, help them learn to steward it well. Christy's biggest challenge in Young Living, I think, was her rank and income progressed at a much faster rate than her maturity did on owning and managing a business.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you go from being a stay-at-home mom,
Yes.
right? Christy was a teacher, right? Made nothing. She became a stay-at-home mom, and then
It's true.
went from Young Living to a nice income, quickly.
That's why we're trying to tell you if you're sitting here like your brain's spinning and I don't know what he's talking about. Like we've been there.
But so this is the other thing too, and being a teacher, I know too. Like remember that learning is a process over time, and you take in little tidbits at a time. So the goal is that you do not take this event, this speech, as the end all be all for what you should learn and know. You need to hear this from somebody else, somewhere else, another time down the road, and start with small steps somewhere. Because I know there may be somebody in this room that doesn't even realize that they should have a separate checking account for their income for Young Living.
Okay, who does that today? Whose Young Living check goes into their family's personal checking account right now?
Used to.
Family's personal.
Like your personal bank account.
Young
Yeah.
Living, it goes in your family's personal account.
Yeah, this is where I started, and so, okay, this is why I want you to see this, Jake, because I knew this was true, and I don't want any of you to feel shame about this. But it's literally where I started, and he's about to tell you why you should definitely. This is your number one assignment. If everything else is what he's going to tell you, if you rose your hand.
So before you even set up an LLC, the very first thing you should do is go to the bank and open it. It doesn't have to be a business checking account. You're going to open a checking account. That is where your check is going to go. That's where your living expenses are going to come out of.
Because a business checking account, you're going to need an EIN for.
Right.
So if you don't have the
That's an employee identification number,
If
EIN.
you don't have your LLC, you don't have that.
Right.
But you can easily set up another checking account that's a personal checking account, but is not where.
It's a separation of entities of personal money versus Young Living money, and you need that.
There's a term in business called commingling of funds. And commingling of funds means you're putting business income into your personal account and buying groceries, getting tires, paying for the kids' school lunches from the same account that your business income is coming into. And that is a huge no-no.
Like on a government level, you got to separate
So
it
you
out.
don't want to commingle funds. You want a separate checking account. Like if you left here, the kind of order of operations is get a separate checking account.
Yep.
That's
Go through that list,
step
Jake.
one.
Step 1, step 2.
I would
Yeah,
get
I need that list.
I would
Yes,
get a
see?
separate-
This is good.
Get a separate checking account. That's your first step. The very next step, honestly, go get an LLC created. Go get an LLC created.
And can you give them an estimate of what they can expect to spend to set that
An
up?
LLC is going to cost you somewhere around $300 to $500 to set up. Now, there are, like, the guy that I like to use, he will set up an LLC, family trust, will, power of attorney. Those are the 4 main things, and it's like $1,500, which would usually be like $5,000 or $6,000 to get set up. And he's done it for a lot of Young Living people. If you do not have a will, if you do not have a power of attorney, you have to get that done.
Is it better to do that all rolled into this one package with this?
Well, like the guy it's separate things. He just knows, like, most people don't have their LLC, they don't have a will, they don't have a medical power of attorney, so he does it for us, for people. So he does an LLC, trust. We do a family trust. Like, I don't actually own our home. So
The trust owns the home.
Our trust owns our home.
No.
So
My
they-
parents do trust as well, but I've never understood like why. It's cleaner, right?
Well, so here's what happens. Once you reach a certain net worth and you die, even if you have a will, it goes to this thing called probate, which means lawyers and judges basically come and
Get to
tell you
decide for
the
you.
way you're divvying up your stuff
So it
means
protects.
what they want.
It's fair.
Okay?
Right.
The nice thing about a trust is that when you die, well, the trust still lives. You're in the trust, your kids are in the trust. When you die, you're not trusting where you're dead. And that house or those assets don't have to go through.
It's a protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
At what point, like, I'm just assuming all of you guys are like married and kids, families.
Yep.
you know, at what point in your life did you guys like get a will and a CPA? Because like me and my husband have been married now. We just had our 2-year anniversary. We live in like 700 square feet apartment.
Yep.
So like at what point is it like, do we do all of this?
There's more to your will than just finance. So you have a kid?
No.
You have no children?
I have a dog.
Well, who's getting your dog if you both die?
Well,
The pounds. Well, no, I don't think so.
I mean, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we live in we don't own anything.
But here, can I just say this though?
But you own a business. You already own a business.
Yeah. But just like what Jim Bob was saying though too, like some of this is habits that you got to form, right? It's much better for you to do this now and then add in and edit as you continue to move forward. And you do have children, you already have something started.
So would you have wished that you would have started it in this phase?
Heck
yes.
Yes, hands down, hands down.
Model.
For
You
sure.
model this and you can show other people.
Because we got ours done way late, and I'm telling you, every trip that we took or flew anywhere, my nerves and my anxiety was like sky high. I'm like, if this plane goes down, I gotta survive, God, because we don't have this stuff set up. And you think about those things, and it's nerve wracking. So it's much better to have something in place and then just add on, right, as life adds more assets to you.
Don't get super overwhelmed. This is a lot of stuff.
It is a lot,
of
yeah.
stuff. But this is something you do over time, right? I'm talking about over 18 years of marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if your goal for the first half of this year is to get your
Get that separate checking account,
get an LLC set up, and then start doing the 50, 30, 20 thing, which is very simple. Like, that's huge.
That's a huge accomplishment for this year, like.
So just start small and start building on it, and then you'll mature, right? Your business acumen will mature as you start doing some of these things.
Yeah, and then like next year you'll hear somebody else talking about money at some point, and you'll have done all those 3 things, and then you'll hear SEP again. You'll be like, oh, I remember something about SEP. It stood for something, and Jake was talking about it, right? And it starts jogging your memory, and then you know what I'm saying? Like, don't put all this pressure to get all these check boxes done at once.
This is something to go do tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
This is creating
habits and thinking about it.
You're not going to go to RCD tomorrow. You're not going to go to full financial stability tomorrow.
You're limiting me like that.
Sorry.
So Jake, I have a question. Because I feel like this is an area where I haven't done a good job educating my team on. Like, I have these things done, but I have failed to. I mean, I've like privately, like I've messaged like my higher ranks, being like, you really should get on this, LLC thing. You really need to do it. Like I've said that. But what does that look like for educating your team? Do you guys have space for that in your business?
It's happening right now. It's going into a unit. That's what's happening right now. We're educating the team.
I get messages all the time from people that aren't, and this is what I love about Young Living, and I'm just in a little bit of a unique position where, the things I do for quote unquote our business end up affecting everybody, right? Or the events, or the tools, part of the broadcast, the comp plan book. So I look at Christy's business and I'm like, man, how can we make that better? And then I'll go do something that really is generic enough that affects everybody. Mm-hmm. So because of that, I've just been blessed to work with so many people in Young Living. I'm constantly on Facebook, on the phone, talking to other leaders about this stuff. Like I get messaged all the time. I mean, I remember even before Jacob passed, him and Sarah, I got on the phone with them for 2 hours. They had nothing set up, right? And I would slowly walk them through these steps, and don't everyone message me at one time, but I'm
well, and this is why, honestly, our team does not get much of Jake at all. This is why I'm recording. You can attest to that. He does not go live in the group. He doesn't teach the group. If you want Jake and you're in our team, you got to go to all the public ones where everybody else is and listen in and watch, because his time is he can't divide it. So that's why this is so valuable to them. That's why I'm going live here. I was laughing with Dondi, and I'm like, I got to take notes over here because he'll be teaching you guys and answering your questions. And I'm like, I can't get him to answer that at home for me because he's too busy with everybody else in Young Living. I just can't.
So for me, I'm so prideful too. What really hurt me when Christy started getting successful in Young Living is we would have people over to our house, and they're like, "Oh my God, can you believe that Young Living has done this?" And I'm like,
"You're like, no, it didn't."
You're like, "Wait a minute, I was successful before she started Young Living."
We've been doing it. Maybe we've been married almost 20 years, right? Young Living is a fairly new thing. I'm super thankful, but.
It's his red coming out. He's like, "Hello, I've got a company too over here."
This happens with Young Living. It is hard for me sometimes to help our team because I'm managing a large software company, and trying to help Christy with her young living business. So
a lot of his help comes behind the scenes with my personal questions.
Right.
That and like the money side of things, all this like SEP and the QuickBook or the payroll stuff. Like I have asked him 10 times about that because I was trying to learn it so I could take it on. I can't. Like that's where he shines, and
we
he
would
takes
argue
that
every
on.
month because of this. When you ask the 50% thing, every single month I can't get Christy to grasp the idea that the family gets 50%. Part of the 50% is your salary. The other part is a profit distribution.
And that's just terminology. It means nothing to me. Like it's
she's
just
always
terminology.
like, wait, so I get a paycheck? And I'm like, yes, you're an employee of the company you own. Like,
But I don't actually, because my employee mentality is, well, where's my check? Thanks, boss. Where's my check? He's like, no, that's just terms and definitions. That's like, the fit is staying over in this account, girl. Like, you play with your 20%. That's the money you get to play with.
Like tagged.
Yeah,
It's tagged like that. Yeah.
It's labeling.
Yeah.
So you don't get a check.
Right, see? You're
Well,
like,
you can.
no.
Yeah, you can do that if you want to. You just
But your
don't.
LLC got the check.
So I direct deposit into an account.
Yeah.
But you could, if I wanted to, ADP can mail me a check.
Yeah.
So, but, okay, so say ADP takes that proper distribution and puts it right back into the account.
No,
that-
No, it goes into your personal account.
ADP does
Out of the business.
payroll. So ADP, you're going to have a revenue account. And ADP's or Gusto or QuickBooks, they're going to say, all right, you want to pay yourself $5,000 a month in salary. I'm going to take out $5,800 because I got to cover the salary, but I also got to cover some additional taxes because I'm an employer. I own a company that's paying employees. So they will take out whatever, $5,800 from that account to send her either a physical paycheck or direct deposit it. Think of it like this. If you own a bakery, you have 10 employees. You got to have a bunch of money in an account to pay them every month, right? That's called payroll.
Yeah.
The payroll company goes, all right, I need to take $20,000 out of your account to pay all your employees. We're doing the exact same thing. It's just that
There's only one employee, and then
Go at the end of it.
our personal checking
Your
account.
personal.
It gets-
But it's not tied to the LLC.
Right.
Okay,
Just
so I'm
just
a
like,
huge violation of the law right now. I'm trying to help me. If that's really what
well,
I'm
you're not violating the law. It's just how if you're dirty with the way you manage it. Yeah, and you're giving more to Uncle Sam. And again, you're not alone. Like I'm not going to name names. We were just when we were Diamond Dudes. One of the Diamonds, told us they were making over $100,000 a month and had $0 saved.
Nothing.
And was putting nothing away for taxes. So don't think you're like,
For more than 1 year.
Yeah, for multiple years.
Yeah, multiple years in a row.
So it's not that you're weird. This is most people.
and this is why it's advantageous for you to be learning this now.
Yeah.
Go through the hassle of learning and growing early, and you will never be that diamond.
Right.
Okay, so you said to get your separate checking account, to
Yep.
get an LLC, and then Car, you said there's people that do the rest, but you never told us who those people are.
Well, there's you can ask your accountant. Like I use ADP for my payroll. I use somebody else. I could have gone through ADP to do my 401k, but there's another company that I use. So like ADP, every single time I do a payroll, I pay.
So ADP is equivalent to Gusto, is equivalent to QuickBooks.
Payroll provider.
Right.
Payroll provider.
provider.
Okay.
Your CPA can do all this.
Your CPA.
And your CPA is the person who does the taxes. You just go to them and you say, tell me what to do.
No.
Okay.
On some of that.
You still
But you need to direct it. You need to direct
money.
it. Like a CPA, this is where people, this bugs me about CPAs too. A CPA is not a tax planner, okay? A CPA is paid to know tax law and file taxes. They're not going to say, oh, if you do this and this and this, you can mitigate your taxes. Most CPAs don't do that. That's called tax planning. There are people who are paid tax planners, and that's all they do. They look at your whole family's income, liabilities, assets, and like, all right, we're going to do this, this, and this, and they'll give like a worksheet to a CPA and like, go do this. But most CPAs aren't thinking big picture. Most aren't. They're going to do what you tell them to do. So you need payroll. You can tell your CPA, I want an LLC set up, I want to be taxed as an S Corp, and I want a payroll. And this is what I want my payroll to be, and I want a monthly distribution of this much money. and they can do that for you. Some CPAs will do the payroll for you, like they'll actually do the payroll. I don't do that. Obviously, Cardi doesn't either because they charge more than these online systems that just do it for you. Like I use Gusto. It's $30
Gusto,
a month.
ADP,
It does my
QuickBooks.
payroll
What do you
Yeah.
need a CPA for?
to file the taxes.
To file your taxes.
They actually do the filing of your taxes.
You can like my LLC is opened up through my account, my CPA. So I opened up so he started my LLC that I file as S corp. So
you're saying don't use TurboTax?
You can if you know what you're doing. Like I did our taxes, but you gotta know what you're doing.
right, like I don't know what I'm doing, so I want a CPA to guide me through filing my taxes.
So wait, one question. I'm sorry, I keep asking a lot. But so with my photography company, and I have an account, like an LLC business account at my bank, right? So if I was to go in there and say I want to open up another account, should I like open up a different account for my oils thing?
We don't. So like again, I have Dempsey Holdings. We have Christy's account, which is licensed to live. That's her business account, but that's mainly Young Living income. Well, I have an account for Dempsey Holdings, my LLC, and I have income coming from all over the place.
Okay.
But because that entity, Dempsey Holdings, owns a bunch of things, right? It's all of its revenue from selling books to speaking to properties to starter step money, that all goes into one account because that's all income for Dempsey Holdings.
And you can will those. Like let's say Jordan wanted to will her photography business to her sister and wanted to will her Young Living business to her brother.
Yep.
Even though it's under the same LLC,
they would split it up.
They can split. You can divide out differently, or.
But you said earlier that in some like law that you can't pay yourself or like buy groceries or something with your business account.
It's not a law. When auditors come to look at you, if you're commingling funds, meaning you're literally buying groceries and tires out of the same account, you're putting your business income in, it's just a huge red flag, and they're going to dig a lot deeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a law.
It just means that if you got audited, it'd be real messy.
It's a bad
and it would be a battle to prove that you're spending your money where you should and you're claiming your money.
So if we take that money out of that, so say for instance, we have our photography company, right, and we pay our mortgage out of that account every month, we transfer it to our personal account.
That's fine.
And then we pay our mortgage.
Yes.
Okay.
So think of it this way. Think of it this way. Your business account should have a wall around it, and there's only one door. I'm putting money in through that door, and I'm taking money out through that door. If it's in your personal account, you're putting money in one door and it's going out windows, and
so
that's the problem.
The other way of looking at it is like looking at your transaction history. You should only see money going in, money going out, not all the like Target and gas and all that stuff. It shouldn't have a statement of all the ins and outs. It should just have
question to you.
in
Like,
and
here's
out.
a simple question. If you have a checking account that's your photography business, and let's say you're paying mortgage and groceries out of it, how would you open that account and say, here's all my business expenses?
Right.
How do you
So
do that?
initially we opened it with a partner, and it was just a business account, and we were paying each other out of that account. Now my husband full-time just does photography, and he just quit his job in November, so that's like our salary. So we have X amount of dollars in the salary that we pay our mortgage out of every month, right? And so we take from that account, but like occasionally, like if I take a client out or something, I put dinner on that card.
You should, because that's a business expense.
Okay, so that's okay. But then when you get audited, what if they come back and say, well, you went to dinner and like blah blah blah.
I just asked who it was with and why.
Right.
Yeah.
So and then with Young Living, what I'm saying is, would it be best to open my Young Living account under my photography's account because it's an LLC, like it says Swingwood Call LLC.
Yeah, it's up to you. Like my Young Living account's Dempsey Holdings, but again, Dempsey Holdings owns a bunch of things.
But it's just easier that way, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, in
business.
theory, I could have a checking account for my Young Living business, a checking account for starter step, I could do that, but that's a lot of work.
Right.
I manage all those funds, so they can all go into one account. That's totally fine.
Okay.
You just got to be diligent about that money that's going in there.
Yeah.
What resources do you recommend, like, to go home and tell my husband, like, because obviously I can't.
Oh, I can't FaceTime.
I can't take your words and go tell him.
So you don't have to read anything. LLC, S corp, you just got to do it. Like, you don't need to read anything on that. You should read about SEPs. Like, if you just literally Google what's a SEP, how does it work, that would be good reading. Just know it can get, and it's anything in finance related, people get very overwhelmed because there's a lot of words that they use that you've never heard before. That's why I don't typically refer people to stuff like that. Like,
online
find
classes.
someone you trust that knows what those things are, that can guide you. And that's where, like, you're talking about like a CPA, they know all this stuff that they're never going to tell you about because it's way heady, right? But if you can say to them things like, man, I really want to defer some of my tax income. Oh, you need a SEP. You don't even know all the ins and outs of what a SEP does, other than it's a way for you to save money and pay taxes on it later.
So one good book, because you want a resource, it's a really good book on stewarding your money in network marketing, is Money Mindset. I sent it to most of your husbands have it, because I sent it to all of them. It's Money Mindset by Brian Carruthers.
Yep.
Brian Carruthers is a multi-million-dollar earner in network marketing.
Yep.
And he wrote a book on, okay, now you're making the money, now what?
Now what?
That's it. And it's real thin, and it goes through SEP RAs, it goes through, you need an LLC, it goes through, here's the percentages, 20, 30, 10, 20, it goes through all the stuff.
Nice.
Pretty
And
much
it's
everything
called
we
what?
talked about. It's called Money Mindset by
Money Mindset.
Brian
If
Carruthers.
you think about your living income again, yes, it is really cool to look at the income disclosure statement and say, I want to be an RCD. There's nothing wrong with that. But if most people got to platinum, even to platinum, and got stuck, making $14,000 a month, and you were a steward of that.
Yeah.
If you were a steward of that $14,000, again, I'm looking at the...
You're in the 1% of the world.
Easily. Again, 40 years of work, people are retiring with $70,000 in savings and a $1,700 a month, paycheck, we'll call it. Even at platinum, making 14 grand, the family's getting 7, 30% is going to taxes, 20% to the business. You will easily surpass people with 4 decades of being platinum.
Right.
Like it's not even that math would be silly to do. It's insane where you would be at the end of the 40.
Hey Jake, Ashley's been raising her
Oh,
hand
I'm
for a while,
sorry.
but right before Ashley, I just want to say, please,
What color are you again?
you know I love it. Don't, and I just want to say this because I feel like we tend to do this as women. We will FaceTime our husbands. We'll say, what's all the research I need to give my husband? And we do not get educated ourselves.
Okay.
Yes.
Bobby Stashenko is platinum that's under Christina Rothstein, whose husband in a tragic accident passed away last year. And I am, for those who do not know, I was a single mom before I met my husband. I am very passionate about women knowing where their money's going and that they can make these decisions too. So yes, bring your spouse on board, but please do not think, because that's a blocker when we think I'm gonna let my husband, that's fine if he's gonna take over that, but you two know what's going on.
That's right.
You two know what these words are. You two can pick up the phone and say, please talk to me like a
And guess
kindergarten.
what? If you're broke now, he may be an idiot with money.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
why hand it off to an idiot? Like, learn yourself.
Well, and I'll say that's interesting.
Guys, I have 2 quick questions.
Okay.
Talk about the business account, one door in, one
So
door
glad she
out.
said
I had a business account while I was in Seaside. Are we using my business debit
Oh my
card?
God!
Absolutely,
If you are
girl.
not using your business card while you're here,
Yes.
you're on a business retreat.
So I shouldn't be doing that.
Yes.
Yes.
That's how you do it.
Business account, yes.
Yes.
And
You will be. When you guys are here next year.
Okay,
That's
wait,
right.
Second question.
We're gonna need a
What are
bigger
your
house.
thoughts on LegalZoom to create
That's good.
LLC?
For documents, wills, and stuff.
An LLC is a very simplistic process. So if you do it through LegalZoom, that's totally fine.
You just have to make sure you designate S corp, filing as an S corp when you're doing it, because it'll ask you. It goes through the steps. It's real follow
You
the
create
real
an
brick
LLC
road.
and you're choosing
Yeah.
And it'll say, oh, you want to set up an LLC? Great. Do you want to file as an S corp or a C corp? You choose S.
Think of this. An LLC is a legal entity.
Right.
The IRS knows nothing about an LLC. It's a legal entity to protect you. It's why it's called a limited liability corporation.
And LegalZoom is okay.
And
Yes.
don't do it in your name, right?
But is it like
It doesn't matter.
that was one of my questions.
Don't do it in your name.
Well, I mean, you are an LLC.
You kind of need to know what you're doing.
No, their website's real easy. I use Argine just because I want as much other things done.
If it's your name or not.
Like I wanted it on legal. I
Okay,
wanted it
so
so
the
John
downside
Trust.
is that LegalZoom charges you an annual fee and
No, they have a flat fee for stuff like LLCs. Yeah. I don't know what the cost is, but I know they have a flat fee to go like.
you have to have an appointed like attorney
I can tell you if you want to.
on your LLC, and they said if you don't have one, it defaults to them. If it defaults to them, you get paid.
Oh.
You get charged like $500 a year. They raise their fee.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you.
What was that
have to
again?
have
They raised their fee of what?
Sorry?
They raised their fee of what?
It took almost $500. We because I have an old LLC for
Oh,
something else that I used to do.
You talking about LegalZoom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through LegalZoom, and then we're gonna charge, got an email saying they're gonna charge $500. I called, like, how do I'm not using this business anymore.
So
They're like,
what-
well, you have to either change the attorney on file, or else it defaults to us, and that's what we
What
charge.
I'll do is I'll email our guy and ask him if he's okay, or would he be willing to do, like, kind of a bunch of LLCs? Because again, we did a package, right? You may not need that book, you want a will and a family trust.
I totally am.
If you're not though, please do at some point. But I'll ask him if he can just, what would he charge us to do a bunch of LLCs?
Like a bulk LLC.
There is so this is very important. You're gonna set up this LLC. You still need a CPA.
Yes.
Because here's the deal. The reason I want to charge you extra money is there are filings and there are business meeting minutes and there are things that are supposed to happen in this LLC every year. Like you're supposed to have business meetings. Your CPA does all of that for you. You don't technically have to meet. Sanina, don't sit down and document meetings and all that. Your CPA does this. If you have an old LLC like this and you haven't touched it in a decade, and now you're like, I want to do it again, they're like, great. All those years you didn't touch it, when you reactivate it, the IRS remembers when you did it last time, they are going to backbill you for every year of all. It's a penalty every year that you didn't do the minutes correctly. And blah, 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 blah. That's where that comes in. So you're going to set up the LLC, and then you're going to find a CPA that you like and trust and agree with. At least for now. And you make it switch. You can fire. I've fired 6 CPAs. I've fired a lot.
Yeah.
And you can switch, and then they are going to do all that for you. So that is the next thing.
Yeah, so the checking account first thing, then you really want to get LLC, taxes and S corp after that. Like really you should after that. And then you actually need to sit in and have a conversation, because now that you are an employee of a business, which means you're going to need payroll, you should figure out what your salary should be.
Yep.
And once you figure out what your salary should be, get payroll set up. Payroll is going to come out of this checking account you just created, right? And you talk about what the salary is going to be. Now you start doing the 50, 30, 20 stuff, right? 50%.
I have a question about the
Yeah.
So if you do a payroll, like one of the
I wish I had a whiteboard.
Gusto, would your Young Living check be deposited to an account within that payroll, like?
The payroll company pulls money out of a checking account. Every dollar you make should be going into, we call it the revenue account. Payroll comes out of, you do. You go to the bank.
Through like my own check.
You go to Chase and like, I want to create an account.
That's my question.
And if you have an LLC, you can open it up as an actual business account.
Right.
Okay, what if I'm not ready for payroll yet? Because I'm a little bit like, I gotta do 7 gazillion things right now. But can I open, so I get my LLC, I have a business checking account, all of everything goes in and out through the business. Can I write myself my salary check from the business account?
No. Because when you do payroll, that's a very formal term, meaning you as a company is paying an employee, you're withholding taxes, you're filing quarterly returns for the business.
So like a W-2.
Right. That's you're talking like real business now. So if
And
you're
that's
not,
why you can have the SAP.
yeah, if you're not ready for the payroll yet, create the LLC, create the separate checking account. You're gonna put all your money into that checking account, and then every month you're just going to move money from that account to your account. You're still going to get a regular 1099 from Young Living because you haven't done payroll and all that yet, okay? So you're still going to pay way more in taxes than you should, but at some point you'll get the payroll set up and you'll start saving some additional taxes.
Okay, and then sorry.
When you transfer the 30% into your account that pays your taxes, and you said it doesn't end up being 30% because you have deductions and you save yourself money, what do you do with the balance? Do you leave it in that account?
No, I find a place to hide it. SEP, 401k.
So you move the balance.
To an investment somewhere.
Okay, I was wondering if the money went towards the next year or no.
For him, he always this is where you send the soldiers out to war and you're getting more, so he's figuring out where he can go invest that extra money so that it's not taxed, and then you actually are gaining extra money on that money.
So what if you have enough to like invest in another business? What do you use?
Yeah, it's an IRA.
So then you can
That's just like you would any 401k. The other thing is what were you just saying? It made me think of something. You were just talking about.
I said the prisoners of war, like that extra money with the check, the tax account, 30%. She was saying, what do you do with that extra money when you don't use it all for taxes? I was saying you send it out and do investments.
Oh yeah,
and,
that's yeah.
Okay.
So there's this term in finance called being a zero. So So there are people
Called what?
being a zero.
Being a zero.
And all that means is there are people who make money, they make a bunch of money, and then they spend it, and they're back to net worth zero.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They make money, and they spend it, and they're back to zero. So what all you're trying to do in finance in general is make money, spend some of it, but not be back at zero. And then you make money, and you save some more, invest some more, and you're growing away from that zero every month, little by little. And if you do math on finance, it actually really is. It's less important about how much as it is how long. So time is the real leverage in saving and investing. We just have this massive benefit that we have high income as we grow in the business, and we have time. So the amount of wealth that you can produce is large, very large. Because you have people that are making $100,000, $200,000 a month. But guess what? After month 2 or 3, they're like, oh my God, what do I do with this money? Well, you start creating legacies that will outlive, your grandkids.
Yeah.
That's right. Hey, babe.
What about paying on debt though?
Huh?
What about if you're paying off debt? Like, what if that's your goal right now? So like,
Pay that shit off, yeah. Like in relation to what though? Like
in
So like out of your, it has to come out of your personal.
no.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Here's can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
Okay, we have friends who are historically in debt. Like they are
professional debtors.
They are professional debtors, and he left. Or he got fired or laid off from his job, and he got this big severance. It was like $30,000, and they had a little over $20,000 in some credit card debt they wanted to pay off. And he's like, should I pay off the credit card debt? And I'm like, no, because you don't have discipline. So because you don't have discipline, if you use that money, all of it, to pay off the debt, guess what? In another year,
Accumulate the debt again.
in debt. So because like me, I can have the debt and put money away. It doesn't bother me because I'm disciplined enough to pay that off. But if you haven't got that maturity of discipline yet, you should not put every dollar. This is where I don't agree with Dave Ramsey. You should not put every dollar into the debt payoff because the debt payoff does not change your behavior.
Thank you.
It helps you get out of debt.
So good.
But if it hasn't shifted your mental thinking of actually growing wealth, then when you get the debt paid off, you're just going to get more debt.
Do you agree with the snowball thing?
That's what I'm saying. Like I agree with the mentality of
That was so
be
that's
out of debt.
yeah.
I do agree with that, and I like the snowball approach. What I don't agree with is you don't invest anything until you're out of debt.
Yep.
Because that doesn't start creating the
habit.
behavior
Yeah.
You go right back to
of
zero.
investing.
We did this
And
for
you go back
10
to
years.
zero. So
We literally
Broke.
just did this too.
Yeah.
Like literally I got him in here, and I'll be candid, I don't care.
Yeah.
But got him inheritance, paid off our debt, and then right back in.
right,
did it
because
because it's
there's no
behavior,
behavior
right?
change.
We did it for 10 years straight.
So even if you're
Yeah, we did
and
that
I-
at least a dozen times.
so one thing even if literally right now you're putting $50 a month into your SEP, guess what? That's $50 more than you did last year. And at the end of the year, you actually have produced $600 of real wealth.
That's right.
Which
And-
is like interest and everything.
And you know what? Do that for 40 years and see what happens. And then as your income grows and you can put more money towards wealth building, the time that gets to sit there and build, like how old are you?
25.
Okay, listen, y'all could do something really fun. She's 25. So if the average person works 40 years and let's do easy math. Let's say they retire at age 60, right? She has 35 more working years before normal people would retire. So we just learned today the rule of 72, right? Let's pretend she can earn 8% interest on her money. That means every 9 years, her money would double. So even at the age of 25, if she could figure out a way to save 100, 200, 500, whatever, pick a number, right? She has, so she's 25, 35 years, so if she's earning 8%, that's doubles every 9 years, divided by 35 years, so she has 4 doubles. She literally could, if she had $1,000 today, by the time she retired, 1,000 turns to 2,000, to 4,000, to 8,000, to $16,000. So at her age today, if she could save $1,000 and never save another dime, that's 16 grand.
Wow.
Now imagine she was doing that every month. Like the power of 35
And that's
years
talking
of-
about like leveraging the J curve of things,
Yes.
right? It's not like if she invested $2,000 each month, that it would double his end result. We're talking about exponential growth, right?
Yeah.
And that's to Trisha's question why we're so passionate about you guys getting this right at the lower ranks, because if that rank doesn't stay, what did you do to steward the money that you're getting now?
Yeah.
I think about T. Harbecker talking about the
Yes.
financial thermostat.
Yes.
And how if your financial thermostat is set, the room, like it will accommodate no matter what is in your bank account. Wherever your thermostat is set, it will go down to that level,
Yes.
or it will rise up to that level.
Yes.
And that whole debt conversation. So that's why lottery winners are
Go
not,
back
they're
to
not
zero.
capable of
Mhm.
handling that amount of money.
Yeah.
So the thermostat is set here, all the money goes out, and they're right back to where they started.
And it's overwhelming to people. If you're talking about this financial thermostat, when you're working and you're building, remember I talked about modeling money. You model money. It's a muscle. Well, guess what? As you earn more money, you need a stronger muscle. Because when you're talking about, my check is $1,000 a month, it's $2,000 a month, it's $5,000 a month, it's $50,000, it's $100,000. If you haven't strengthened that muscle to handle those kinds of numbers, it can ruin you. I mean, it can ruin you.
So what would you advise on debt?
We've seen it happen.
What do you mean? What
So
don't have
say-
any?
Okay, so I'll give you my scenario. That's wonderful. That's not my scenario.
Yeah.
So my scenario, I'm at silver making $2,000 a month.
Yep.
So say for now I need $1,300 a month to run my business and live off of that money for right now, right?
Okay.
That's paying for, I don't know, in our family that's what we do,
Yep.
right? So I have $700 left.
Yep.
I need to make a $200 credit card payment.
Mm-hmm.
Do I put the $500 into an account that is saved, or do I put it like more towards debt? Do I pay over?
So if I were in like your exact shoes,
Yes, my exact shoes.
all right, if I got a silver paycheck, my first thing would be 50% goes to the family, but for you that's not enough.
Right.
Because you need more from your income, it sounds
Right.
like. So you won't be able to do 50% in the beginning.
Right.
Your family may get 70% to cover your bills. You have to obviously start paying down the debt, but if you are literally putting every dollar of it towards the debt, that's bad.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm saying like if it is literally $20 a month that you're putting into something, if that's another account and at the end of the year you put it in a SEP, I don't think you should do that because it doesn't sound like you're disciplined to do it. You can go to even Fidelity, like you can just create a SEP. If you're self-employed and you've got your LLC set up, you can create a SEP. You can literally go to Fidelity's website. I want to create a SEP and create a SEP. And if you're putting $20 a month into that, you're actually producing wealth.
Okay. So you would say a SEP would be beneficial even if you're like at this point.
Yeah, yes. I've always tried to figure out a way to grow wealth.
Right.
And whether that is through a 401k working at a corporate job, or when I was purely 1099 as a consultant years ago and putting money into a SEP, growing to our Young Living business and my business, putting into a 401k, at the end of the day, if you're not generating wealth, and I don't care if it's $20 a month,
Right.
if you're not generating wealth, you really didn't move the needle at all.
Yeah.
You just literally, you were on the earth another month. Yay.
So I do have to say though, for a while, most of my income was going towards like different kind of living. So like all of our supplements, our Ningxia starting to go to the chiropractor, and that wasn't generating wealth, but our lives were.
Well, I was going to say no. You're wrong. That is generating wealth. If you're going to generate wealth, you have to be healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
So being well, like literally being well, is going to help you produce wealth. Now, initially, your wealth building may be this. It may be, hey, we live a pretty shitty life from a wellness perspective, so we're going to focus on maybe buying more products with that money and improving our wellness so that we can go out and work harder to actually start seeing money in an account. But spending that money on your family to buy products to be healthier, I see that as a form of wealth. It's just not financial wealth.
Yeah.
Right? There's
But
nothing
like
wrong with
for members who are looking at like Kari says about the promos and like getting that money, if you're thinking about, I have a choice of whether or not I can put this money into getting all the products that my family needs for the month.
Yep.
Or I can do like, putting that money into like the savings for, or not the savings for tax because you need that, but like the business.
Something for wealth, yeah.
Something else. Then
I just say you got to do more classes. You just got to
Here's
get
what I boil it down to, and I
the
don't
income.
mean to be rude in this, but I call bullshit if you say, I can't put $20 a month into something that generates wealth for our family. I call bullshit because I would bet a large sum of money either you have eat out once this month or have a Starbucks. You know what I mean? Like if you start somewhere and create a discipline around that, as your income grows, that discipline will grow.
Well, and I think like as you learn and you understand the power of that investment and time that he was talking about, you start becoming more internally motivated to figure out a way to make it happen. Yeah. So even my girls, like one of the girls on my team, I remember at the beginning, the same thing applies even with your business and ordering your product, right? So she, every month for probably a solid year almost, she would go in and do a monthly like garage sale on Facebook, Marketplace or whatever. She'd start selling off anything that her kids hadn't played with in a couple of months and be like, well, that's gone. Or I don't need this top, I don't need these shoes. And she found a way to make that extra income because she was for sure committing to those promo levels and getting those products for her experience because she needed the business and she needed the testimonies, right? It's the same thing with your investments and money that you need to leverage the time and value that you have on that. When something's important enough to you, you figure out a way to make it work.
When we were newlyweds, and you know, Christy kind of told you, we met on the internet, we got married 4 years later, 4.5 years later. When we first lived together as a married couple, we lived in a bed and breakfast, like in a bedroom of a bed and breakfast.
They stopped doing the bed and breakfast and just started renting out the rooms in that home.
Well, we used to keep a whiteboard for our bills, and on our whiteboard, we literally had every month's bill on there, and then that's what we used to pay our bills. And we struggled a lot with Christy grasping this idea of we have to build wealth. If we're just paying our bills and buying groceries, and at the end of the month there's nothing left to us to build wealth, we will
then we're living above our means, and we got to figure out a way to
perpetually be young, dumb kids working and living in a bed and breakfast, right? Mm-hmm. So we actually started. We had this area on the whiteboard. I don't know if you remember this, where it was our savings number, how much we were saving, and every month. Because I get it, Christy struggles in this numbers area. Mm-hmm. Every month, I would tell Christy, this is what we put into savings, and I would make her go erase the whiteboard and write the number.
So I could visually see it, and it would imprint for me.
And it really got her excited because like she started coming to me like, what did we put in savings this month?
Mm-hmm.
And then she'd go erase it on the whiteboard and write the current total.
It helps that poverty mindset shift, you know.
Right.
It also makes it
empowers
real
you
to write it. Our money is so digital that we don't actually feel it. We don't,
absolutely.
You had to fork over in cash.
Yes.
I know I'm over, but I want to show you guys this too. Please. So when I was a kid, again, remember we had nothing. And I call this the rule of Benjamin. My granddad, who never had money, he always kept, and I keep one right here actually, right? I think it's right there. There it is. Literally, it's right here. $100 bill. I keep this in my wallet at all times. I don't spend it, and it's because when I was a kid, my granddad and my mom did this, and it's so funny. Like they never taught us this, but I always saw this. He always had a $100 bill. And I remember my mom always had a $100 bill. And I remember asking my mom when I was a teenager, like, why do you always keep $100? And she would not spend it. I mean, we would literally be eating, you know, potted meat and saltine crackers, and she'd have a $100 bill in her purse. And she told me that she always keeps a $100 bill on her because it helps her not to feel broke. Even though she doesn't spend it, she knows that, you know what? If I wanted to go into the store and buy, you know, some ballpark franks, we ain't never getting a ballpark franks.
That's next level.
We got, you know, behind the ballpark franks. If she wanted to, she could use that and buy something. And what's crazy is I struggle even today to spend money. I just, I don't really, I've never been like a person who had a desire for material things. And there's nothing wrong with that, like nothing wrong with that. But I just don't spend money. I don't. So every month, we used to fight about money because I don't spend it. Christy does spend it, and I would be like,
I'm gifted at spending.
She's super talented at it. It's very good gifting. But we sat down and we were like,
investments.
Yeah.
You're gifting your people.
That's
we were like, okay, what's a number? And we agreed on a number where we each get this allowance each month. And it is your complete blow money. If you want to go eat ice cream, drink Starbucks all day, and that's what you do with yours, then, I mean, enjoy it. Yeah. And what I do is I get my allowance every single month, and I end up putting some in my wallet, and then I have like an envelope that I keep in one of my gun safes, and like I have this massive pile of cash now in this gun safe because I never buy anything.
But you know, it's so interesting how that, like, you're raised in your mindset of it. Like, to him, that is massive, like, mental security for him.
That's what I was gonna say. Like,
yeah.
Like even now, I keep money in my wallet, and like I don't do it because I want to keep a lot of money in my wallet. I do it because, you know what? I might want to walk into a place. I'm not going to, but I might want to walk into a place and buy something. And I like knowing I have money in my wallet and I don't feel broke. And my mom still does this to this day. She got her first checking account when she was 50 years old.
Wow.
My mom's never driven a car, but I will, till the day she dies, she'll have a $100 bill in her purse, and it's so that she doesn't feel broken. It's a really good thing to model. Like, if you have people in your team that have that poverty mindset that we were talking about earlier, they're poor in their heart and in their mind. If you can teach them to do like this thing, this power of Benjamin, where I want you to, and it may be $20 or whatever the currency is. I want you to keep $20 in your wallet at all times. It's not for you to spend. It's to know you can spend it.
It's to help shift that mentality so that you never get to that place where you're like, I have nothing. Like, you know, all the time you've got something, but you have to change the behaviors too, and that's hard. That's the hardest part, is changing the behavior to not touch that. You know,
so little. I remember one time I was coming home from work and I stopped at a gas station to fill my car up, and it's so funny in hindsight. This was not that long ago. I called Christy. I just kept pumping my gas, and I was like, "Hey, is it cool if I get an ice cream sandwich?"
He did. He called me as a grown man. He's like, "You think I could go in and get like an ice cream sandwich from the gas station?"
Like,
here, I'm like,
"What are you calling me?"
"What?" I'm like, "Is this a prank?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Even I have this. It's you know, growing up with so little. Like, when you feel like you're doing something for yourself, sometimes you feel like you're taking away from other people. You know. So even I still struggle with that sometimes,
and that's where, because we are so opposite, like you can imagine how much we butt heads in the beginning of our marriage. We married 18 years this summer, and in the beginning, he would think I would do things because it was just my natural behavior, just to piss him off.
She did.
I did not. I don't know if he like saw that. I really like, this was just, we grew up poor as well, but they were spenders, right? Like every penny that came. As soon as my dad got money or anything, he was so excited to spoil and bless us with something with our girl. But, and you know, and then I should be careful with my words there too, because he wasn't being a good steward, right? Like there were things that weren't getting paid because he felt so depressed about not being able to give us the simple things that as soon as he got money, he was like, I'll get you some gum, I'll get you whatever, right? I know. But yeah, it's a mindset thing.
If you guys do go down this path and you have questions or you want to talk more closely like about your situation, like message me. I would truly love to help you. And one of the funnest things for me is I'll work with people and talk to them about this kind of thing. And then I call them out on it later. Like, where are you at with this? Like, are you actually saving like we talked about? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you ask me to work with you and you don't do the things, I'm not going to talk to you.
Quick story too, because when we got married and he knew so much about money but grew up with so little, I couldn't understand. I'm like, this is clearly your natural gifting. Have you ever thought about like being a financial advisor? And his words were, I could never do that. And I was like, why? And he goes, because the moment somebody comes in, takes up my time, my knowledge, and they don't actually go do it, I'm going to punch a wall. I'm going to punch a face or something. Like, that's wasted my time. It's like, I can't do it.
And now you're in Young Living. Huh? And now you're in Young Living.
I'm not wasting my time talking to you. Yeah, there's other people that will actually go do the things. So,
yeah. Awesome.